Okay, everybody's good?
Looking good.
Okay, we have returned from our executive session and now are starting our public meeting. Good evening and welcome to the public meeting of the Chattel Township Committee on March 8th, 2022. Let's all rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to a flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Gonna wait 1 second.
Alex, can you turn that volume down?
All right. Are we good? Test. Is that working? It was just really loud playing back, so it was like a massive echo. Or a delay, but it was large.
It's good now. We're okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a jam-packed agenda this evening, so I'm gonna go straight into the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Pull some items.
Okay,
I want to pull some items up for discussion.
okay.
Okay. 2022-86 on Mountain View, 87 regarding Yesterday, 89 on Colony Lawn Care, 90 refurbishment of Colony tennis courts, 91 security cameras at Nash and Shunpike, 93 designated pre-qualified financial advisor, 94 the risk management consultant, 95 labor counsel, 96 the tax attorney, 97 conflict litigation, and 99 the temporary lease agreement for bus lane. And was 98 removed? 98 was the energy, wasn't that removed?
Yes, that was removed, yes.
Okay. Making note of that. Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended with those resolutions removed from the consent agenda? So moved. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The first item up is our bond sale resolution. Resolution 2022-078, general detailed resolution. Can I get a motion to adopt? And is there a second? Any discussion? And can we get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, resolution 2022-079, sewer.
So was that motion, because we can vote on all three all at once, was that motion for all three? Or
I named the first one.
okay. Because we can, the bond attorney told me that we can vote on all three.
Okay, can we
sometime.
let them, let's
So if you want to do
add
the next two
the
as
two
well. Yeah.
together. Okay, resolution 2022-079, sewer utility details resolution, and 2022-080, combined notice of sale resolution. Can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
And any discussion? And a roll call vote?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, our next resolution is a resolution that's also a proclamation that I thought was important enough to read out loud. and include the full committee. Normally, we do these as a proclamation, but I thought it warranted to have the full committee, obviously vote on it and also sign it as well. So this resolution and proclamation of the mayor and committee of the Township of Chatham supporting solidarity with the people of the United States and around the world, praying for the safety of the people of Ukraine and an end of hostilities. Whereas on February 24th, 2022, after months of troop and tank buildups, Russia further invaded Ukraine by shelling and engaging in rocket attacks on several major cities, including its capital, Kiev, targeting the civilian population, including innocent and unarmed women and children. And whereas these Russian troops have met with strong and courageous opposition from the brave Ukrainian military and civilian resistance. Whereas Russian President Vladimir Putin has long sought to control Ukraine since the collapse of this communist Soviet Union, and more currently after many countries in Eastern and Central Europe who were once willingly a part of the communist Soviet bloc proceeded toward democratic forms of government and joined alliances with Western European nations. And whereas Ukraine has been at war with Russia since 2014, when after Ukrainian citizens rose up to oust Ukraine's fraudulently elected pro-Russian President Putin, annexed Crimea and invaded Ukraine's Donbass region without provocation, and he has continued to control and back the separatist forces in those areas who have waged a protracted war against the Ukrainian military. Putin refuses to acknowledge Ukraine as a sovereign nation. And whereas over the last few days, the United States and its Western European allies have announced strong sanctions against Russia that undoubtedly will cause its leaders to suffer economically as they operate to militarily destroy Ukraine. And whereas these sanctions are meant to stop the Russian military from obtaining new weapons transfers, to promote anti-corruption measures, to punish Russian banks, and to close the European Union's and the United States airspace to Russian flights. And whereas the Chatham Township Committee stands with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has said, "I am pleased even more allies have come forward with the defensive and humanitarian aid. We must stand with the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and democracies everywhere." And whereas the Township of Chatham stands in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, especially Ukrainian Americans in Chatham, in the face of this abhorrent, unprovoked assault on their country, their freedom, and their lives. And whereas the people of Chatham Township join those in the streets of New York City, Berlin, London, Milan, Sydney, and countless others, including those in Moscow, who risk imprisonment and in retaliation in protest against Russian aggression and in support for people of Ukraine. And whereas the governing body of Chatham Township joins with the people of Chatham Township in wishing for a swift end to this senseless Russian provoked violence and needless loss of life, and joins in praying for innocent men, women, and children of Ukraine who only want to live their lives peacefully and free from the dictates of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And whereas this resolution constitutes an emergency measure for the immediate preservation of public peace, prosperity, health, and safety, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham as follows. Section 1, that this committee strongly condemns the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine, denounces Vladimir Putin's year-long aggression against this sovereign country, supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and encourages the United States and its partners to continue the exceptionally strong sanctions and take further necessary actions against Russia. Section 2, Ashley Felice's mayor does hereby proclaim solidarity with the people of Ukraine in their fight for freedom. I commend them for their strength, courage, and bravery, and I urge all residents to express their support for those facing this unjustified attack on democracy and freedom today and every day throughout this conflict. Section 3, that the clerk of the council is directed to transmit copies of this resolution to President Joe Biden and all members of the United States Congress. Can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
And is there any discussion? We'll go to a vote.
I just wanted to thank,
Oh, that's fine.
I just wanted to briefly thank the mayor. This is one thing that I think we can all agree on, so I appreciate you, setting up this resolution proclamation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I really thought it was very important to have, that's why you noticed there's a space for all of us to sign. I thought it was very important for us all to come together and sign it jointly.
Was there a motion in a second?
Yes.
Motion was made by
I was a motion, solicit the second.
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Madako,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes. And so far, I'm 3 for 3, not calling Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Hoffman. I'm determined.
Okay, we have one more proclamation this evening. Regarding Women's History Month, which is very appropriate today as it's International Women's Day. So thank you for bringing this to my attention as I was focusing on the other one. But, okay, so this proclamation, whereas for more than 2 centuries, our nation has grown under the simple creed that each of us is created equal. It is a notion that makes America unlike any other place on earth, a country where no matter where you come from or where you look or what you look like, you can go as far as your talents will take you. And whereas Women's History Month is a time to remember those who fought to make that freedom as real for our daughters as our sons. Written out the promise of this franchise, they were women who reached up to close the gap between America and what it could be. They were driven by faith that our union could extend true equality to every citizen willing to claim it. Whereas that legacy of the change is all around us. Women are more than half of our population, nearly half of our nation's workforce, and more than half of our college graduates. Whereas women are still not fully or adequately represented at the top tables of organizations by corporations nor on local, state, and national legislative and governing bodies, and are therefore not being heard or listened to. Nor is a woman's very important perspective properly represented when decisions and laws are being made. And whereas our history shows that when we couple grit and ingenuity with our beliefs, there is no barrier we cannot overcome. We can stay true to our founding creed that in America, all things should be possible for all people. Whereas Chattel Township community leaders are working together to shine a spotlight on Women's History Month and to celebrate women's empowerment and to focus on women in history who fought for our rights and whose lives changed the course of history. Now, therefore, Mayor Ashley Felice and the Township Committee do proclaim March 2022 as Women's History Month in the Township of Chattel. Sign that. Okay. And then now we have our presentations. We have 2 presentations this evening. So let's start with the Historical Society.
Okay, so is this on?
Yes, give me 1 second. I'm getting word that there is a bit of an echo. Is there a way to lower the volume back there?
Well, it's not actually coming from the booth. I think it's the microphones feeding it through the sound system.
There's no way to like lower the volume or anything?
Greg, you have to hear this.
Where's their speakers? Speaker there.
That should be better.
Okay.
I think it's because we have the broadcast feed going back through
Right.
Zoom. I think that's.
Well, I think that worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alice, do you have an acceptable level back there?
What?
Do you have an acceptable level of volume back there going out to broadcast?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
then,
and like I have been told about today,
I guess we have to ignore it. All right,
Okay,
thank you. Sorry about
that's
that.
okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm Martha Wells. I am the president of the Chattel Township Historical Society. And I'm here not just to speak about the society, but about our building, our museum, which is the Red Brick Schoolhouse, also known as the Mount Vernon School. And I hope you all got the information I sent out, and did everybody get the video and get to see it? Okay, so you know. So that building is now 162 years old. It's done a lot of things through the years. First it was a school, and then when that school closed because they needed more space, and the students from there moved down to Southern Boulevard School. Then the Averett family bought it. They were the owners of Dixie-Dale, and they recognized the historic importance of the building and wanted to make sure it was protected. So they bought it, and they said it would be used for public things like this. The Red Cross was there, and the garden club met there, the art club met there. So it has always been a community building. And then when the municipal building needed a bigger space, it got deeded back to the town, and it became the municipal building until 1988, and when you came here. And then they asked us if we would like to have it as our museum. So of course we said yes. So let me tell you what our mission statement is first. Okay, so our mission statement is to increase knowledge, awareness, and preservation of township history. So one of the things we're really interested in preserving is that building. So to do that, starting in 2018, we hired the firm of Connolly and Hickey Historical Architects, and we got a certificate of eligibility, which says you are eligible to apply for a nomination to the register of the New Jersey Register of Historic Places. So we got that, and then we got a preservation plan and the nomination. There are actually there are two right now, 2 buildings in this town that are on the New Jersey Historic Register. It's Wasoban over on Treadwell and the Gibbons Farm over on the Wanaka Way. And now the Red Brick School is going to be the 3rd one. So and then the next thing we did was apply for construction documents. So that's what that video was for. That was when we applied for those. So those documents are what will now be sent out to people that are going to come and do the construction. Okay, so now we are applying for that money. This is where the big money comes from. So we're applying for $533,100, over $500,000. And to do this, we are applying to the Morris County Historic Trust and to the State Historic Trust, and they balance each other. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. So because we don't own the building, we need to have owner assurances and owner authorizations signed by the mayor, please. So we've done the county before, and it was we're pretty straightforward with that and understand how all that works. Now the state is a little more, they want more stuff. So we're working on those things. But I think you've all read for what this is going to cover and everything, what it amounts to, why it's such a big amount. And Connolly and Hickey will send out the bids. They take care of all of that. And pretty soon we just go and it's all done. And after several years, but so that's what I'm here to tell. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Is there anything that we can do for the Historical Society to support the grant application?
Yes, I really like that you asked that question, you emailed me that, and the answer is yes. So one of the things the state wants, they want letters of support. So letters of support from individuals or groups that benefit from your resource and or programming, as well as legislative letters of support. So what, what does the building mean to me and the community? And what you can do is you can email them to me, or I need them, the grant application for these are for the state. The grant application for the state, I need to have by the end of March. And for the county, I have to have all their stuff together by March 23rd. So any other questions? And if you'd like to, anybody would like to come and see it and have a tour, just let me know. I'd be glad to show you around. I would love to. Yeah.
What was the time frame generally for completion of the project, assuming that all goes according to plan?
The grants that the county gives are 2-year grants, but they're also, you can get 2 more years extension. And often that happens because of it's finding the bidders and getting the equipment and all that kind of thing, especially these days with the not getting the equipment they need as fast as they can. But so 2 years is what the county is looking at. The state is actually looking at 5. So maybe because we have a special day, a special year coming up in a couple, I think 26 is the 250th anniversary of the country. So maybe it'll be ready for that. Any other questions?
No, I just want to thank you for all that you do and for the Historical Society, all that you do at the schoolhouse there. It really is a gem, and hopefully everybody, if you haven't seen it, will take a walk through.
It's really fun.
And Martha's such a great tour guide too. I mean, there's just so many things I didn't expect to see in terms of, and then you learn about the history of the township, which is just really terrific.
It is. This is an amazing place. And, we've been doing this for years, and we said, that happened in Chatham Township? Oh my God. It really is incredible. So we would love to see you all come sometime soon. Okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming us to the presentation. Thank you for all your work for the town. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next presentation is from the library. Whenever you guys can.
If I may, I'll just
Of course.
make sure our tech is working. And this button.
No, don't try to, you gotta open that.
While we're setting up, just in the interest of time, my name is Andy Hollander. I am president of the board of the Library of the Chattels. Mayor Felice, thank you so much for inviting us here. Committee members, Deputy Mayor Hamilton, we're delighted that you are serving on the board. Karen Brodsky is a woman of many talents. She is a library director. She's also apparently IT facilitator right now. So she's working on the slides. And while she's doing that, I'll say that anyone who knows Karen and
Keep
me,
it on second screen only.
Okay. Several times.
anyone who knows Karen and anyone who knows me knows that we can speak at length about the library and its virtues and its benefit to the community, but we're going to respect your time tonight and we're going to talk about facts and figures, where we are, and answer your questions. But before doing so, let me give you a very brief snapshot about the library of the Chathams. Many thousands of township residents hold a library. The current president of the wonderful Friends of the Library is a township resident, Susan Ross. The immediate former president of the wonderful Friends of the Library is a township resident, Sue Hope. The Friends book sale, by the way, is this Saturday. For those of you who haven't been there, it's just such a wonderful experience. So many books, so many great people. It's a terrific vibe, and it's a highlight of the library's year. The library of the Chathams has been a joint institution since 1975, which is actually 11 years or so before the school became a joint institution. So I like to joke that the library inspired the school, our very successful school system. Here's what you can do as a joint community institution. My kids just graduated from the Chatham school system. A strong library supports strong property values. And last but not least, a strong public library expresses our dedication to our democracy's most valuable and precious ideals of free speech and free association and individual liberties. Building on the proclamation about Ukraine, I think that this is, I'm honored to be able to speak about our free public library today. So slides. Thank you, Director Brodsky. So how did we get here? In 2000, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. In 2013, the Board of Trustees commissioned a comprehensive engineering review of the library building. It was found that there's almost $1 million worth of immediate repairs needed. Much of that was the roof, which is more than $400,000. The trustees recognized that their space for teens in the library was a need. So the next year, a capital request for that amount, $995.25, was made to Chatham Township and Chatham Borough and was granted. Teen Space Project planning was started. And there's a ripple effect. When you try to change one thing in a house, in a building, you're going to say, do we have to open walls? Is there going to be new HVAC? What about the flow within the building itself for the library patrons? 2015, the board asked an architect to develop plans to really integrate the original building with the 6 additions. And I should also say, you know, among the many benefits of the library, Martha Wells, Pat Wells, the Chatham Township Historical Society, you put on at least two programs in partnership with the library.
Oh, did we ever? You're the best.
Which were about the pandemic of 2018, which was actually a partnership with the Township Historical Society, the Borough Historical Society, and the library. That was a great program. And the veterans of the Chathams, which was just moving and terrific. And I said I would try to limit myself to talking about all the great things in the library, and so I will. But thank you, and I'm glad I was able to mention it. So 2015. Architectural plans, the library building itself is from 1924. There were 6 additions over the next 80 years. Actually, I should say, in fact, yes, 80 years. And so it's like a layer cake. You had to say, was there integration with all those? No, there really wasn't. So in November of 2015, the library made a capital request to the towns for $4.5 million for the project that has been dubbed the Bridging Space to Place project. Both towns said, hey, library, please go fundraise, and we'll talk to you later. So, next. All right, so the library undertook fundraising. And in 17, the board hired a fundraising consultant just to maximize the success of the project, the fundraising project. During that year, the state library said that it would issue up to $125 million worth of funding to libraries by issuing a bond. And so that was a great opportunity, but it also created more uncertainty, because what happens is the town said to us, well, we'll let you know what sort of support we can give you, but we want to find out what the state will give you first. And then, so the town said, we want to know what the state will give you. The donor said, well, we don't want to know what the state will give you, and we want to know what the towns will give you. So there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty that the library encountered in terms of fundraising. That's been a challenge. In 18 and 19, and then there was a 2-year lag after the announcement of the Bond Act to its actual concrete issuance where we could apply. So we applied. Unfortunately, we were denied funding in round 1. We applied in round 2, and unfortunately we were denied in round 2, but we were put as first runner-up for round 2 funding for what is called a large project. Please. So for the last 6 years, the library has put excess funds into a capital reserve for the project. And to be clear, the library is, we submit a prudently managed institution. Karen does a great job. For example, staff lost by attrition, not replaced. Staff workloads increased. There are fewer full-time equivalents. And you can see the remainder. It's important to us to be economical and prudently manage the library. Next, please. Over the last 6 years, the board of the library has not asked for more than the mandatory minimum funding for libraries. What is that? Very briefly, by statute, the libraries must be given by their towns 1/3 of a mil. So that's essentially 33 cents for every $1,000 of equalized assessed valuation. That's a minimum, that's not a maximum. Towns can give more. In fact, about half of towns, according to our research, do give more to their libraries than the minimum.
It's in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Thank you. Next please. So library services, we want them to be as high quality as we reasonably can. And we're concerned that if we don't address matters, that we're going to be at risk of a service decline, and we don't want that. No one wants that. All right, Karen, please. What is the Bridging Space to Place project? Very briefly, we're going to add a teen room. We're going to add a local history room, and we would, as I've said to Martha and Pat many times, we would love to have your participation with that and in planning that.
Okay.
A STEM room / STEAM room, small study rooms, added meeting rooms, a business center, improved children's room. And also, a library, our building is, there's HVAC, there's plumbing, there's ventilation, there's fire suppression. Any building just ages naturally, and we want to bring it, we want to refresh it, we want to make it better, we want to give better service to the public by high quality systems. All right, so in terms of numbers, the library is offering For the bridging space to place project, $1,987,000. And that's what the library has in hand. That's in our bank account. And how did we get that amount of money? It's based on fundraising that we've done recently and also in the past. It's based on we believe frugal operations and management. In addition to that, in 2020, the towns passed resolutions giving $750,000 to the library for the purpose of the bridging project. We mentioned the Township Resolution 88 for $404,000. There's also $80,000 that the library just received from Morris County, really for the Morris County block grant for building a ramp in the back of the library, which we're really excited to build to increase access to seniors and to parents with strollers, and just people going up into the library. Investors Foundation, thank you, has given us $150,000. There's $50,000 remaining in there pending. And also there's $33,000 in pledge balances pending. So that's the total of the bottom left, $2.9 million. So in November of last year, the library proposed a budget of it's hard to see that at the very bottom, but it should be 2.35. 2.35. And you can see that 10,000 is from state aid. And just to note, state aid, maybe one wouldn't expect this. It's a very small amount of municipal library funding in New Jersey, at least for us. Allocations from the borough and for the township, the mandate, the third of the mill is the number there, 2.163. The library is also asking for $32,760 in addition. I'll get to that very shortly. The library reserve, I won't go through this in too much more detail, but the library reserve is essentially $427,000 in unrestricted funds. That's what the library can dedicate to what it wishes. Of that, the library would be giving $142,000, leaving 2 months of operating expenses in the reserve and interest income. So what is the library requesting? The library is requesting two things. The first is a confirmation that the $750,000, that's, by the way, combined from township and borough, that request is still in effect. And the library can realize that. And one reason that we need to know that in short order is really because a responsible board needs to know whether it has the money in hand to go ahead and say to the public and to the professionals that we're going to need to hire, we have it. On a more concrete level, we need library drawings, we need architect's plans, and rather than reworking them when, rather than think of that temperature, the thermometer is going up or down, we need to know what level that thermometer is at for architects. We're also asking for $32,760 more than the state mandated minimum. And again, let me know, the library has not asked for more than the minimum for the past 6 years. This is the first time in 6 years the library is asking for that. And that's to help fund a certain position at the library. And that would be in what we're calling an emerging technologies teen staff member. The way I visualize this position is this person is going to help bring the library into the future, especially for newer members of the community and for younger members who, are more in tune with social media. Like any organization, the library needs to spruce up its social media presence. We know that. We know we want to improve in that respect. This person, I think, will be a great asset, and especially, and I want to leave you with this, I'll conclude, especially because social media increases the outreach, increases the community support. It also can increase donations. You know, this library has acted over the past 6 years in a way that welcomes donations from the community, which would put less of a burden, of course, on the township and on the borough. So we want to put in place a mechanism that can help if people say, I want to donate to the library, you know, we can, their passion, their energy, we want your help. We would also love to have your support in a financial way too. And so we need to connect. So I will leave you with that. The library is looking to connect. The library is a bridge. It's a bridge for people of all ages, from toddlers to older adults. It's a bridge from the newest members of the community to people who have lived here for most of their lives. And it's a bridge from the township to the borough. It's a bridge from the Chathams to the outside world, and vice versa. So thank you for your time and your attention. And Karen Brodsky and I are delighted to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you both, very, very much. This was a great presentation, and I really can't thank you enough for all the work that you guys do for our library. It's truly such a wonderful community asset that is so well appreciated by all of our residents, and certainly I can tell you by our township committee. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So I'd be remiss if I didn't say something to my friends Andy and Karen. You know, I'm privileged to not only be a member of this committee, but also serve on the library board of trustees. And I just wanted to sort of reiterate what the mayor just said, you know, and I know firsthand how hard you guys are working, and I know that you take efforts, great efforts to be prudent and responsible and good stewards for this community asset. And obviously the last 2 years have been a tough time for a lot of different institutions. So, you know, we really thank you for coming here, and I sort of know some of this stuff, seen some of this stuff before, but maybe not as much as my other colleagues. But you know, we're certainly going to take it under advisement, and I'm sure there'll be continued dialogue, and we'll be, you know, looking to do what we can to continue to support the library.
Thank you, Tim, and your Hamilton, and so on.
Thank you for the presentation. That was great. And thank you for all you both do for the library and for the community. The 4.5 million for the project. That number was a while ago, and life has changed dramatically. What, you know, is there a new number? Is there a have you restructured the plan? Have you, how are you managing that? Because it sounds like you have almost 3 million put aside, and the grant you applied for was another $1 million too. I'm trying to remember how much the grant was.
The grant was 2 point, but yes, the first iteration was I believe 2 million, 250,000. But Karen, I've been speaking. Karen, do you have any thoughts? The thing is, Karen Brodsky, our library director.
So we tried to keep this presentation very short, knowing that, you know, you have great time constraints. We don't expect to see that grant money. We are the first runner-up, but we have absolutely no indication when, how much, what percent likelihood there is of ever getting it. So the Board of Trustees said, you know what, it's been 7 years. People have given a lot of money. They want to see something built. So the board made a decision that once we know how much money we have, we're going to get something built. And we have 2 architects on deck ready to say, okay, this is what we can do with that amount of money for you. But that's why we're asking for clarification to that 750. So whatever that total amount is, that's going to change the plan. If we did the plan as originally conceived, it would be well over 5 million at this point in time, waiting all these years.
Thank you.
You correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but just to make sure we all show that number that you saw on the slideshow, 2.9 or whatever, the plan is to do what we can most brutally with that amount.
But all the board members agreed at a retreat in November that a priority is the teen center and infrastructure like HVAC, and we have a humidity issue we're trying to solve.
Yes, I agree with Deputy Mayor Hamilton. We have to be realistic. We are going to be realistic. We're at the point where we need to act and the community and serve the community in a way that's tangible.
Thanks for your presentation. You, our community. I've been looking at the audits from the library, and it looked to me that in 2021, you had the 2.9 million in funds. Has the audit for 2022 been completed, and is that still the number, the 2.9 million?
It's in process. The numbers we gave you were as of the end of February.
So then, it looked to me from looking at the audits that about $250,000 a year, 225,000 was going into capital reserve. And is that about the run rate?
Well, we're allowed to use the third of a mil for capital if it doesn't impact library service negatively. So whatever we could squirrel into that account, we did. There wasn't I would say probably that is an accurate run rate.
Those are.
Thank you again for your time and for all your work for our wonderful services at our library.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we're gonna move to our report section. Committee Religion Laws, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, shorter than it's been, but I have not as many meetings as the last meeting that we had. And most of them are the senior center. There's still slots available for the Eat Smart, Move More, Way Less program. It's a 15-week evidence-based online weight loss management program, free to Morris County residents over 60. The AARP volunteers are doing tax prep at the senior center on Fridays throughout the tax season. On March 15th at 11 a.m., the senior center is having a free legal forum regarding advanced medical directives on how to start the conversation with family and loved ones about your health and personal care plans. There's a number of new arts and crafts programs that are coming up. Folded bookmark, Wednesday, March 16th, whimsical bookmarks, March 24th, mosaics made easy, March 21st. There's also a senior travel presentation on March 23rd. The New Jersey Intergenerational Orchestra is doing an outreach on March 29th, so that should be pretty cool. And the Senior Center is having their big shred event fundraiser on April 23rd at the middle school from 9 to 12. So please support the Senior Center. They rely on your donations to run their programs. And residents who are interested in anything I just mentioned, you can call the Senior Center at 973-635-4565. And don't be intimidated by that senior title. Anyone more, usually 55 is welcome, so I hope you take advantage. Municipal, although I'm staying on that theme of seniors, Municipal Alliance Committee of the Chatham is sponsoring WISE Wellness Initiative for Senior Education. That will be at the library, and the program offers 6 lessons during April and May. You can get more information at the library or at the Senior Center. And the Madison Chatham Coalition, along with Project Community Pride, are hosting the at-home version of a night of conversation during this month of March to help parents and teens talk about mental health and substance use issues. So to learn more, go to MadisonChathamCoalition.org, and they put together a pretty neat program. So if anybody's got teenagers and is trying to start that conversation, you should reach out to them. It's a pretty good program. That's everything. Yep, that's everything.
Okay, Committee Woman Condago?
Yes.
Do you have a report?
I have lots of stuff. First of all, from the Environmental Commission, they discussed establishing a separate green team. There will be a tree seedling giveaway on April 23rd from 8:30 to 1 p.m. at the municipal building again this year. On May 1st, there was a cleanup day. It's the work day at the Greenville Village Pond Conservation Trail for trail maintenance. Residents are welcome to help out working on the trail, or they can do their own cleanup in their own neighborhood to support the day. On April 30th, we have a townwide garage sale along with Chattel Borough and Madison. If you'd like to get your address on the map, you can make a $10 donation to the Great Swamp Watershed. And I think you can find more information as it gets closer. How to do that. So also there's an electrical vehicle expo at the Sunday Motor Company on the corner of Kings Road and Green Village Road again this year. That's on Friday, April 22nd, and the time will be announced. There's a poster bin sale at a discounted rate. They're partnered with Grow It Green in Morristown. Grow It Green, Morristown. Morris Township, Madison, Chattel Borough, Florida Park. And you can get these bins on a discounted composter sale for residents who want to start backyard composting. This will be in time for Earth Day? Yeah, Earth Day. For Earth Day, as part of an ongoing effort to reduce our community's carbon footprint and to be environmentally thoughtful on our everyday activities. The residents can place their order starting on April 27th. And the delivery date is expected to be May 14th, located in Morristown. You can pick it up. And there will also be a webinar, Composting Simplified, Black Gold for Your Garden, a master gardener's talk on March 22nd at 7:30. Are you helping me with that?
I'm trying.
I'm not done yet. Okay, so I think that's it. Oh. Okay, the commission is also planning an outreach program that explains the negative impact of mosquito sprays, and I think that's very important. Okay, so I'm finished with the environmental commission. Now we're going to go to the historical society, and they're busy planning for the Schoolhouse Centennial event, which will take place on June 18th. On March 20th, there will be a presentation on the Morris Canal. April 24th, Kevin Doherty will give a presentation on the 100th anniversary of the Green Village Fire Department. And these presentations will be Zoom presentations, and the link will be available at the request at the Historical Society's webpage. On May 1st, they will be participating in Morris County's Pathways of History, which is a history of small museums. The event will take place at the museum, and more details as the date gets closer. Just take a sip here. Okay, now for the DPW, they've been very busy as usual. So far, they completed the renovation at the Police Command Center. They're continuing putting in electric at the Senior Center. They're continuing benches, scraping and painting benches and tables at Colony Pool. They started making repairs to the basins on the 2022 roads to be paved. They started replacing risers on manholes on the 2022 roads to be paved. They had a salting operation on 225 at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then they'll probably be doing grinding today for the possible 1 to 2 inches of snow tomorrow. They installed tennis nets at Colony Pool. They cleaned up the turf at Shuntype and started to in use on March 5th. They completed installing new bumper guards on top of the fence at Shuntype Turf. They started to replace bumper guards on Shuntype Field 1 and 2. They retrofit to LED all traffic lights outside of Hickory Mall. And they did tree work from last night's storm, and they got pulled out at 12:45. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a promotion here for the Art League coming up. They'll have a reception here on March 20th from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. That's a Sunday. We will have a special wall dedicated to Ukraine, and our artists will bring in their sunflower paintings and photos and paintings. And many of the artists are donating the sale of their works to support Ukraine. I think that's it. I hope the one comes to Archie. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeeman Lois?
The finance committee met and we passed a resolution this evening, which was related to debt restructuring. And this debt restructuring, it decreases our overall debt. It decreases our net debt. It decreases debt service payments. It extends the duration of our, of those payments for repayment. It takes advantage of historically low rates that we're still in. It relieves stress on the general budget. And most importantly, the debt restructuring also provides debt that is callable. And so unlike some of the debt we have on our books, which is not callable within 7 years, we are able to call this debt for this issuance. So that's a big win for the township. And it was a lot of work. And I really think our professionals, including our financial advisor, our bond counsel, and our staff here in the building, we're going to need to complete the budget and the capital plan, and we should be introducing that shortly. Colony Pool Committee is hoping registration will be open certainly within the next 10 days. And on June 18th, we're also looking for a great mutual event with the Historical Society as we had last year at a similar time. Rec Committee is open for public comment again. So if you want to make a public comment to the Recreation Committee, please come Wednesday, that's tomorrow, and we'll be at the high school cafeteria meeting. And Mr. Carr, if you are listening and you want to talk about Oak Knoll Fields, that is your opportunity. And I can tell you, Mr. Carr, that those Oak Knoll Fields are have been in the meeting minutes, and we would love to discuss them at that time. Okay, I can say that with all jest. Mr. Carr and I have a bit of a friendly relationship. Okay, so for utilities, PSE&G was working in the row, which is the right away. We have massive high tension wires, and they're cleaning out a drainage swell. They're doing some tree trimming and removing trees in their row, which they have the right to do. And we are lucky to have a partner like them. We also had this very successful satisfactory conclusion to a discussion about permits in our municipality, and I was very happy with them. And then for communications committee, we haven't met, but we're open to set everything.
I have a quick question for you regarding our utilities. I know there's a handful of people that are still out from this past storm last night. They're still out of power. I think it's like, last I checked, it was like 24 people or individual houses, I should say. Is there any update? Have you heard anything from them today or anything?
No, I have not, and
Okay.
That's still that Gillette substation.
Okay.
Power center. And I will be seeking. I was anticipating a report on the upgrades and repairs. I mean, because we can discuss. I mean, they're obviously working to get our residents back online, but we want to see what their plan is, so we can maybe predictive or informative.
Yeah, okay, because yeah, obviously right now it's a priority to get everybody back with full power. So I can shoot them an email as well if we need to. All right, sorry. Deputy Mayor Hamilton, do you have a report?
I do, I'll be brief. In lieu of my report on the library, I think we had a fulsome report from the library on what's going on there tonight, so I'll skip that one. As far, and I think I could combine to a certain extent, Board of Ed and health board as well. Obviously, since our last meeting, there's been some big news on the COVID front as far as, maybe not news, as milestone events with the new guidance from the CDC about rates and rates of transmission, and also vaccination rates, and more importantly, masking guidelines, and culminating yesterday in the big New Jersey event that I know my kids, the mayors and committee member Lois, were excited about going back, having the option at least to go back to school unmasked, and from what I heard, that was a great success. So, and it's obviously great to see so many people here tonight, including John. It's been a long time. So good to see you not on Zoom. As far as the Public Safety Committee, I did want to take this opportunity to recognize and mention Officer Mike Sawyer from the Chatham Township Police Department, who served his last shift for us today and yesterday, sorry, and wish him well on his retirement. But it also highlights the fact that the police department is looking to replace officers in the ranks as they retire. And we have recently announced a new position that we're going to be recruiting for. So, you know, anybody, young people interested in law enforcement, you know, we're always looking for good people for the police department here locally. And that's pretty much it, other than lock your cars and the proclamation on Women's History Month. Just remember, we're always doing these proclamations. I think our next meeting will have come and gone. So I want to wish all my fellow Irish Americans and anybody else who enjoys St. Patrick's Day a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. Do any of our professionals have a report?
Yes,
Mr. Rushkey?
yep, just
Okay.
a few things.
Okay,
Just an update on the paving. I have been coordinating with the DPW regarding the prep work, because they have quite a bit of work that needs to be done before we can even get a contractor in to mill and pave the road. I've also been coordinating with the DOT on the administrative portion of the grants and making sure that we get authorization to bid right away. One thing I'm bringing this up is important just to note that the New Jersey Public Contract Law does require municipalities or government agencies to adjust bid prices for the price of oil. And so it is something that we do need to watch very carefully regarding crude oil prices, because it does affect the asphalt price, and we do have to pay a surcharge if the with the indexes that changes. And so it is something to watch. And just looking at the way it's starting, it may be something that we need to discuss, because I can see the surcharges that may be applied for the amount of paving that we're proposing. It could be $30,000, $40,000+. So it's just significant. So we may want to look at that and see how we may have to adjust our paving to recognize that there's something very unique that's happening that may impact them. So, just bring that up.
thank you.
Yeah. And just a couple of things to report on. I'll try to be very quick. Yeah, I've also been trying to. We met with the DOT consultant and the DOT on regarding regarding the Safe Routes to School grants and trying to get a handle and push the project along, so that these projects are just incredibly slow, the process that they're proceeding. But unfortunately, the feedback that we're still getting from the DOT is that there's really no way to expedite chunk height. It is going to still take a year, maybe two, in order to get this project moving. It's just a snail's pace. With one of the grants with chunk height, the consultant did have the design that they came up with was quite excessive. The estimated cost was well over $1 million. We raised all kinds of red flags with that DOT regarding making sure that they in fact were going to pay for all these improvements that their consultant was proposing. And we ultimately had a meeting with the DOT, and they basically felt that the improvements were excessive. They were proposing all types of drainage improvements within the county right away and such, which wasn't really, the grant is for a sidewalk. It's not for all incidental improvements. So they did scale the project back with that, and to where it was intended. It was intended to just be a sidewalk project. And so the project does currently, they did remove the curbing from the project, and for a number of reasons, because of not because the curbing would have changed some of the drainage patterns and stuff. So it really is just being a sidewalk project. So even though the paving is going to be forward on shunt pipe, all the improvements are basically outside of the edge of the road, so it wouldn't really be an impact to associate with it. So although we do still would like to see the project moving forward, but it shouldn't be impact with that. The one project that we're starting to see the end of the tunnel is Lafayette and Spring Street. The final design is done, and we're at a process where the final stages is to get the project certified by the DOT in order for us to go out to bid. One of the things that need to be certified is that these federal grants do require full-time inspection during the watch the contractor is doing the work. And from the very initial stages of these safe routes to school grants, we were always pursuing additional money from the DOT to pay for that, receive money to pay for that additional engineering cost. And we have sent a letter to them with that request. When we met with the director of local aid years ago, they spoke very favorable and supportive of that request to have that covered. So we do feel it is going to be something that we're going to receive. That will, in order to receive, spend that money and secure that, we have to go through a federal process following the Brooks laws to procure a consultant. Basically, it's an RFQ process where we outline how a consultant would be judged, and then we bring consultants, and then the highest consultant, then we negotiate a price with that consultant, and then we get DOT approval. So it is a process, and so I'm trying to push that one along, and I know Bob didn't put a resolution on yet, or I'm not sure if we need a resolution to authorize that RFQ to go out, but it is something that we hope to do very shortly, just to keep that project moving. So that's so hopefully that I'm really trying to see if we can get this project authorized and frankly even constructed this year during the summer. But it's hopeful, but we're trying to push that one along. Again, I'm trying to be quick. I'm just sorry. just touch base with a couple of things. The Morris County grant for the design of the pathway going through Nash Field Park. The county, we did meet with the county. A agreement is it's forthcoming, and I'm sure we'll have further discussions on this. But just outlining, we did have a meeting with them just to kind of some of the high points that we brought up and got confirmation on is that the funding is not precluded to just be for engineering and permitting. You can apply for future funding with Morris County after this project is done. They did say that there would not be any further funding available for permitting. They did confirm that there's no commitment. Once we go forward with this and prepare plans and specs and obtain permits, there is going to be no obligation in the agreement that we actually have to move to construction. And because we were very clear to them that, given the size and magnitude of this project, it would not move forward without additional grant funding. They understood that, appreciate that. So, if we don't necessarily want to see this go forward and then sit on a shelf, but if that's the reality, because we can't secure additional funding, that may in fact be the issue. There is no, we were concerned about time constraints because would be applying for an individual permit, and the DEP tends to drag their feet, frankly, with individual permits, and we have 2 years to obtain the agreement. We have 2 years to complete the design and permitting, and that sounds like a long period of time, but DEP could sit on this for a year and not get back to us. So we just wanted to make clear that they have, as long as we're being diligent and moving forward, the county said they had no issues. And then the one final note was that we did discuss the concern that the county, when we were preparing this grant application, we initially proposed it as a 6-foot gravel path because it's a DEP regulations. It would be a simpler permitting process and let cost less, but it did evolve into the fact that the permit they would prefer to see an asphalt path and wire path consistent with Monica. So that's how the grant application was proposed. But we were concerned regarding that complication. Would that add into more difficult permits, and DEP can that come back and ask for more and more studies to be done, and we just wanted to make sure that this gets starts to evolve to something where we may want to back out, that there is that opportunity. And the county did agree that they would fund, say, an initial feasibility phase where we can move forward with the surveying, the wetland delineation, and concept plan, and then meet with the DP and get that temperature regarding, how, with all the facts that we can present to them, see how difficult the permitting will be, and if it's even feasible. The DP may come back and say, no, it's one of the things with an individual permit, you have to do an alternative analysis, and they may push us to look at alternatives, locations and such. And so, so we want to make sure that this doesn't, involve something more expensive than what we anticipated. So, but I'm sure more discussion to come, but just giving, just an understanding of that. And then, just lastly, note that, we're always looking for grant opportunities, and there is starting to be some rollout of some of the federal grants that are coming, and certainly infrastructure is going to be one of the main push for grants. And so we are certainly looking for either through the federal highway, if it's coming through there, or if it's coming through the EPA for infrastructure grants. And so we're certainly looking at it. More likely is going to come through the New Jersey I-Bank, which the township has applied for those low interest loans many times over the years. And so very familiar with that process. So certainly some of the equipment at the treatment plant, or some of the components are still from the original construction that's like 60 plus years old. So certainly if there is opportunities for some grant opportunities, we're certainly looking for. So that's
Wonderful, thank you. Greg, do you have any reports?
Justin, I figured out that sound issue.
Thank you, much appreciated.
It was coming from the YouTube live broadcast of my computer. So once I turned the sound out on that, it fixed the problem.
Perfect, thank you very
So-
much.
So no, it was not Alex's fault.
Okay, Mr. King?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman?
A couple of quick things, Madam Mayor. The engineer kind of sold himself short. That grant he was talking about was a $375,000 grant that got built up, and we had to bring it back down to the actual grant funding that was appropriate for it. We have some good news, and this is something that perhaps Committeeman Lois had something to do with. JCP&L's contacted me and said that they now have a 70-30 grant program, so for funding energy efficiency programs. So there was an email that came out about that earlier this week, and they're forwarding you some details about that. So that's good. We had a similar project with PSE&G where we were able to obtain grant funding for HVAC units, and we'll see if we can roll that out again here. I want to thank the members of the Finance Committee for the work that they've been doing, for looking at and doing analysis from all points of the compass, and that should help us with our bond rating call that we're going to have this week with Moody's. So we're preparing for that. And last but not least, in honor of the resolution of proclamation that you read and that was adopted for the Ukraine, this was as close as I could come to the Ukrainian flag with my blue suit and yellow tie. So that's my report. Thank you very much.
I'll just add to that, wherever I asked about the 70-30 energy efficiency grants, it was only at so it goes back to you.
All right, now we move to the hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about any issues that are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Our public hearing of citizens is guided by the Governor of New Jersey's executive orders. At this time, the committee room is open to the public, and we look forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching cable TV on Comcast Channel 29 or Fios Channel 26, you can participate in the public comment section of this meeting by dialing the phone numbers which are listed on the agenda and which are shown on your TV screen. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment section by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street number. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment session. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to the guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. Are there any written comments?
Luckily, no.
All right, so do we have anybody here?
And Kara has her computer hooked up. She has some pictures to go along with. And it's gonna hit the slide thing on there. Yep, the slide to the left. Just use the mic from over here.
Oh, I can stand here?
Yeah, but I need to get that back on. Does it shut itself off? But best bet is probably to speak from.
Okay. All righty.
I want to make sure this isn't blocking the once this comes back up. Okay, and we have
Okay, so I don't know exactly where to go. Okay, Kara Pacifico Feezer, 3 Falmouth Road. Okay, so
Can I get a procedural, I don't want to take away any of your time, so I'm just kind of curious about a few procedural issues. And one, this is a general question I don't know the answer to. If something gets pulled out of the consent agenda for individual discussion, but those are resolutions, right? Not ordinances, so they don't have their own individual discussion period. Okay, answer my own question there. And then so there's this item's not something that's on the agenda, which is the public comment period is for things that are not on the agenda, right?
well, it's for things that are not subject to the one public hearing.
Right, okay, I got the answer to my own question, I got this button up there, like I said, we didn't take your time for that, but it's just sort of like a scheduled presentation as opposed to public comment.
Okay.
Well, it's unusual.
Mrs. Feezer still has, she's still limited to the 5 minutes, but since we had that set up anyway, and she reached out to me in advance,
Understood.
these pictures will help with comment.
okay. So at the last township committee.
That might be wireless, so you could bring it over. That would help people at home because they won't be able to. Oh, just set a mic for you there, but you'd be pointed the other way. So,
Okay, how's
you're
it?
like an MC.
I don't really think I need a microphone. I'm very, very loud. But okay, so now can I start? Now I can go. So the last township committee meeting, there was a lot of discussion around the maintenance of the recreational fields. I have somebody being very close to the recreational fields and the maintenance, as well as our most recent ordinance eliminating the use of pesticides. I wanted to come today and just provide some of my own perspectives. Okay, so first, I want to say that I think we can agree that Chatham Township field conditions must be addressed to improve both the playability and safety of the fields. First, by addressing the long-standing field issues due to topography at both Esternay as well as Mountain View, as well as addressing some of the deferred maintenance issues, particularly at Shumpike, as well as Nash. And to keep in mind that both of these goals of addressing these issues can be done within compliance of our ordinance, which we recently passed, well, in the spring of last year, of eliminating pesticides on our recreational areas. So since this night happens to have a theme of history, I thought I'd share how we must understand the history of Esternay Field in order to understand the current field conditions. So to go back in time to 1893, it started as it was originally a shale pit that produced fine sand and pebbles for use in road materials. Eventually, it was purchased by Chatham Township, and they had a lofty vision to create a multi-purpose recreational area. That did not come to fruition because it was quite costly. So what ended up happening was they leveled 2 tiers of the pit and constructed the playing field, which is known as the shale pit fields. So understanding the history allows us to understand why Easternay has major drainage issues as well as poor soil quality, as well as understand that it's not a quick, easy fix to solve these problems. I'm gonna move, oh no, that's not that, okay. Well, so when I think about this, there's three options to improve the state of the fields. One is to continually attempt to apply and reseed and apply organic fertilizers. Even though it's not great growing conditions, we know that since it's basically a bowl that retains water, it's suboptimal for turf grass management, as well as the fact that obviously it's poor soil due to the fact that it was a shale quarry. So it begs the question, does this begin to just throw good money after bad? The second option would be to investigate other options to improve some of the issues due to topography, such as a draining system. However, is this very costly? We don't know that. What other things need to be improved in order to get this to meet our needs of what we consider a suitable playing field? And the last option would be to just maintain it with minimal resources enough to keep it safe, maybe not as aesthetically pleasing as you may like, but at least safe under with the public knowing, you know, what really is entailed with this field and some of the issues that we need to operate around with it. Same with Mountain View. There's similar maintenance options that can be done to improve the state of the field, as well as the same questions that arise. Again, it does have poor soil. There's no irrigation. Do we continue to reseed even though and apply fertilizers, et cetera, even though it may be a waste of money? Do we improve with irrigation? How much does that cost? There's so many questions here. Or do you leave it as is, using it at the times when it's safe? Again, with the awareness of the public that, you know, these are the issues that we need to deal with. 1 minute, got it. Okay. So the point I want to drive home here is that solutions like fertilizers, herbicides, these things are not going to achieve what you guys want to achieve on these fields alone unless the underlying issues due to topography are addressed. I just want to show how Shumpike and Nash, they're two great precedents of how organic turf management worked well on these fields from 2008, 17, 18, and 19. However, we need to get back to this and continually do some of these recommendations without any gaps in time, because when there's gaps, obviously there's setbacks. And lastly, all this can be done within the framework of our pesticide ordinance. As you can see, it was a long, lengthy process with a lot of communication and discussion with key stakeholders, a lot of research involved, presentations to the SLI committee, to the Township committee. And I guess that's my time. There's my final recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you already sent this to me. I'll forward it to the committee.
Sure. Or I could forward it. Thank you. It was faster at home. Okay.
Thank you, Kara. I appreciate that. I appreciate the email you sent. These problems have been around for a while, and like so they come and go. But to be honest, I never knew really what the problem was, what the source of the problem was. That really kind of helps to frame it. So I appreciate that.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Just set this slide on people. Or actually just run.
Hi, Phil, J. Road. Tonight I wanted to start my comments where I agree with some of the proposed actions I see on the agenda. First off, great proclamations, well said and supported from my side. And I see several resolutions on the agenda calling for better maintenance of our various parks and recreation facilities, and agree we need to keep our recreational facilities in good order. I see you call out an exception in the current law's restriction on the use of pesticides in those resolutions, and ask that you ensure that the DPW stay true to the language language in the township ordinance. Only in exceptional cases should these be used. I see several references that doing extra work on our green spaces won't cost the taxpayers extra money. I haven't seen the new budget, so I can't comment on that or ask myself, are you just telling DPW that they need to do a better job with their existing funds? Now, I could expect that the open space fund increase from last year will be used for these purposes. I've certainly heard a lot of discussion on that. And on that score, thank you, Mark Lois, for convincing your Republican colleagues on the committee that a 2-cent open space tax is appropriate for the township. And thank you to both Councilwoman Fondaco and Ewald for your vote that provided this funding and for other actions that have helped get our Chatham Township fiscal house in order. On a separate note, Mr. Hamilton, you responded last week about my comments concerning the selection of Mr. King as township attorney. Sadly, since you eliminated the second round of public comment, I couldn't respond. I will use this occasion to ask again. This is now the 4th meeting where this has come up. Mayor Felice, you stated that you considered multiple other firms and had interviews with several firms. Mr. Lois and Mr. Hamilton, presumably you did as well. Yet you refused to name them or provide documentation of their proposals. Even though this is a $150,000 a year job that you have awarded to Mr. King. As an elected official, you act on the public's behalf. As a taxpayer, it's my right and the community's right to know who's being considered for $150,000 jobs working for the township. You claim he's the best qualified for the role, then show us who else you considered and why Mr. King is better qualified than them. As far as I can tell, since you won't tell us who else you considered, Mr. King was chosen because he's the vice chair of the Morris County Republican Party. On that point, I'd like to read from the online profile of Mr. House that you chose as township prosecutor.
Assistant prosecutor. For complex prosecutor.
Tim House is one of the leading Republican election lawyers in New Jersey, providing legal services on a regular basis to campaigns, political action committees, and state and county Republican chairs. Tim maintains 2 offices. At House & House, he specializes in all phases of family law and residential real estate. At the law office of William Timothy House, he provides top-notch election law services. As an election attorney, Tim has represented the gubernatorial campaigns of Brett Schundler, Chris Christie, and Jack Citarelli. He's represented the presidential campaigns of Fred Thompson and Mitt Romney. He also happens to be chair of the Somerset County Republicans. Oh, and by the way, 20 years ago, he spent 3 years as a prosecutor. Tell me, what other Republican Party officials do you intend to hire with taxpayer funds? And forgive me if I wonder whether you chose Mr. King and Mr. House because they are Republican Party officials. And to be clear, my objection is not to all of the service providers you have chosen. But if you're going to hire political supporters to take high profile and high dollar roles in the township, then the voters have the right to be outraged. I know I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We'll see you next meeting. Next in line, is there anybody?
Hey, good evening. Jude Tarasca, 55 Floral Street, Chatham. I'm here on behalf of Baseball Committee for Chatham. Just by way of background, our program is probably one of the biggest sports programs. We have 700 rec kids. That includes our buddy ball program. About 300 of those kids play travel baseball. And we utilize every inch of fields we can get in both the township and the borough. I think I should probably start by saying that Bob Hoffman has been a huge ally, has been great to baseball. Everything he's done with the National Lights and getting that going. I know it was 2 or 3 years of fighting to get that done. He did get it done, so thank you, Bob. And DPW, and nobody's going up here and said anything about them. They're tremendous. They do a great job for us in terms of the maintenance. I can't say enough about them. They have the fields ready to go every time we step out there. So my hat's off to them. I'm just want to talk specifically about the actual fields, which I don't blame them for. The grass situation's gotten really bad. And whether it was your presentation, I don't know. I don't know organic, I don't know pesticide, that's not my thing. All I know is that they don't look as good as they did. And whether that's because we stopped doing organic, or we don't use pesticides, or we don't do this, I don't know. That's not my job. That's maybe not your job. But something has to be done, because the current state, they're horrible. And they just continue to get worse if they're not treated. It affects the way the ball rolls. And you want to talk about injuries? Somebody's going to get injured because the ball's going to pop up and hit somebody in the face. That's just a fact. So something needs to be done. And again, DPW, they're fantastic for us. But I'm going to let Mike Kenny come up here because he knows a little bit more about this stuff. Mike's a former past president of our club. He's kind of our field and maintenance guy, so he knows a lot more about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mike Henny, 3 Whitman Drive. As Jude mentioned, I was a president of the club for 3 years. And I just want to walk back a little bit on the history. When I first came on board, we had terrible playing conditions on the fields. It would rain on Monday and we probably couldn't get a game in, even if the sun came out on Tuesday until Wednesday. So we all sat down as a group and formulated a plan. And fortunately, Rutgers has one of the premier athletic turf management programs in the country. And we invited one of their top people to come in, take a look at our fields, tell us what we were doing wrong to the fields. And so they sent us a report on the fields, and we started implementing the things that they asked us to do. And we saw a significant improvement in the playability of the fields. The only thing I think that's left is there seems to be some issue with the grass maintenance on the field. And we would like the opportunity to sit down with, Bob, talk about this as a group, and we can geek out on all the science at that point. But a lot of the things that we're asking for, looking to do, would just be aeration in the fall at the right time. Seeding, the proper seeding, plug seeding, instead of just broadcast seeding where half of the seed gets eaten by the birds and doesn't actually germinate. And using an appropriate applications of fertilizer in the spring just to get that grass growing, crowd out the weeds. We don't want to have to use pesticides. I don't use them on my lawn, and it's just more of a fertilizing issue that we see. So, thank you.
Thank you both.
Mr. Henry, can I ask a question? Mr. Henry, there are several resolutions on the agenda tonight, and one of them is trench restoration. You may not be able to answer this right now, but trench restoration at Nash Field. And so we've had the lights put in, and I'm sure you're familiar with what's going on there. And I would ask you either, if you want to make comment on that, sure. If you wanted to talk to our administrator afterwards, we'd like your input as to what you'd like to see in terms of that restoration, in terms of the materials, or whether it be sod or other things.
Certainly, I'd be happy to talk to Bob further about that. So, I mean, if you want to my opinions right now, I'm happy to provide them. But
whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. No, obviously something needs to be done because in a few weeks the kids will be playing over there and it's quite muddy. We would much prefer to see grass in that area. Now, open for discussion as to whether we want the seed has enough time to germinate before the traffic starts to build on it. It's possible we just don't have enough time for that. So we may be looking at doing some sod work. And we would like to see that area just behind the Nash 1 left field, because it's kind of washed away a little bit from all the construction. So just off the top of my head, that would be what we would like to see there.
Okay, and then we've got called out for discussion later. You certainly don't have to stick around for that, but the Mountain View Field, Esternay Field, and then Nash is the restoration, and we have I can't. What is it? That's it? No, wait, there's there's Colony, yes, but that's not playable fields. Are there other fields? So should we have Shunpike on here for resolutions to authorize necessary improvements to improve the field?
Almost definitely. Shunpike 1 and 2, which are our two natural grass fields, Nash 1 and 2. And I'll just say this about Nash 2, the baseball club invested a significant amount of money, close to some in the area of maybe $75,000 to resod the entire outfield of Nash 2 after we regraded it. So, we would like to see that investment maintained in keeping that grass in good shape. And some of the other fields have gotten a little bit more wild, so to speak. So they might need some, a little bit more improvement than that field, which is relatively new.
And then my last question for you is just Mountain View Field. If this was to come back online because it's not playable now, would you use that field? Is it important to the program?
Yes, we would love to have that field. I think it's personally think it's a great field because it's got a little playground and parents with smaller kids can come and put them on the playground and then go watch their older child's game at the same time. So for that, I think it's an excellent, an excellent field. We would love to have a discussion on, how to improve that field.
If we could reach out, maybe make a meeting. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you both very, very much. Honestly, it's volunteers like the two of you and all the work that you've already committed to the town and our recreation programs that really make this town so great. So absolutely, I would love to meet with you as well if you need and get your inputs as well. Because I think we all agree, we do want to have our fields up and running for our kids, and it is a safety issue, whether it's balls or whatever the situation may be. So I agree. I know we have made it in our resolutions tonight. We've even acknowledged we intend on keeping with our existing ordinance and all. And I thought it was very informative that you suggested other ways as well that could benefit us that we did not know. So I would love to, sit down and discuss this to really find a solution here. So thank you both. Okay, next.
Hi, Jessica Romeo, Pine Street. I'm so sorry. Your last name?
Mike Henny,
Mr. Henny, I'm so glad to hear that you are in agreement with what we on the Environmental Commission have worked for years. Kara specifically, this has been her project for years and years. She's an expert in this area, that we don't need toxic chemicals applied because safety and health are the utmost concern. We deserve our children to have safe playing fields, and it means physical safety in terms of divots, but also protecting them from harmful chemicals seeping into their bodies. I do hope that it's not on the docket to put any sort of toxic chemicals at Colony Pool. These are a lot of young children running around barefoot. These chemicals also seep into our drinking water. They harm our wildlife. So I would hope that when you have these conversations, you also wrote Karen, and the Environmental Commission did send a letter. I don't know if it got to you because we've had some changes, but we voted unanimously to submit a letter to you guys saying that we wanted Kara involved in conversations around field maintenance because aeration and seeding was always part of the program as it was instituted a few years ago. I don't know that it's always happened, but that's always been an incredibly integral, important part of the program, and Kara is the biggest proponent of that. So from the Environmental Commission standpoint, I hope you involve her in the conversations. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. That's why we specifically said that into these resolutions that we do want to, our intention is to abide by our existing ordinance that was passed. Is there anybody else in person? Are we going to Zoom? I think we're going to Zoom.
We do have a hand up. Stuart?
Good evening. This is Stuart Carr from 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township. A couple of items. First, I heard Mr. Lois referencing Oak Knoll School. Unfortunately, I'm not going to bellyache on it tonight. I couldn't hear what was going on very well with the Zoom, so I think that's still a work in progress. I hope I will catch up with Mr. Lois on the Oak Knoll item. If there's something I need to do or stay out of the way, that's just fine. I will do so or not do so. 2 items tonight, repeating the last couple of weeks. One, the 2 meetings versus 1. Or 2 public comment periods, excuse me. Thanks to Mr. Lois for agreeing to at least reconsider that idea. One place I think I'd be a little bit at variance with Mr. Lois is he referenced the idea of a 5-0 agreement to go from 2 to 1. I think there may have been a little bit of miscommunication with respect to Ms. Fondaco and Ms. Ewald about the vote that they made and whether that really included the 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 public comment period. So in any case, having a revisitation of that 1 to 2, I think would be appreciated. Number 2 item with respect to the remote scenario. I wanted to reference a little bit about Mr. King's comment the other day, which inferred, although maybe he didn't mean that the executive order essentially enabled the remote. And then when the executive order goes away, the remote goes away. My understanding from a couple of phone calls, and I hope Mr. King would clarify one way or the other, is that there is optionality at the local jurisdiction level to either have a remote participation or not. It's not a requirement that you do it during COVID executive order and then the ability to do it goes away. Rather, there is optionality. So it really lies at this dais as to whether we do it or not. I would strongly argue again that we have the remote capability because the positive of that, notwithstanding some of the communication issues, outweighs the negative because it does get much more participation. Then continuing to pick on Mr. Lois for a minute, he did reference the issue of the school district not having a public comment period. So I guess I would kind of go the other way. The fact the school district doesn't do remote does not mean that we should follow them. But rather, I think we should take the lead and show the school district that having 2 and also having, which they do have, but having a public remote access period actually makes sense. I did some basic review on that also, and apparently there is optionality at the school district level to have a remote participation. They're not prohibited. So back to Mr. Lois's Robert's rules and best practices, et cetera. If we get 2 public comment periods and fully loaded remote, that's where we should be, so others would follow us instead of having a lower common denominator and us following others with the least that we can do to get away with it. So I look forward to working with Mr. Lois or tussling with Mr. Lois on that item. The other thing to speak to tonight is briefly is back to the Rolling Knolls landfill issue. First of all, Mr. King referenced an item there about the Mealy ownership, that somehow we're connected with the Mealy ownership being private. And somehow that implicates what we can do on the actual remediation dimension. The thing to remember, I think most of the discussion about the remediation is for an environmental improvement dimension. The issue of access is a totally separate issue. While they do work, again, together to some extent, they really are distinct. Because even if we don't get access to that property, having a substantially improved environmental result is better than not having the improved environmental result. So let's kind of differentiate those 2 items if we can. And then finally, the issue on the December 11, 2019 letter, where Mr. King said that he spoke with counsel and gave a non-answer about the issue on whether we rescinded this letter. Again, as I said the other day, I'm not as optimistic as Mr. Hamilton about the MOU or the Memorandum of Understanding the next year, somehow negating this December 11 letter. I continue to argue that we should have a specific rescission letter that goes out from relative to the December 11, 2019 letter. And I would hope that that would happen. So again, with Mr. King, if there's a way to do that, I really think, again, there is the potentially responsible party dimension, the legal dimension and all that. But there's also, again, a business dimension to this, a business strategy. And back to Mr. Hamilton's point, again, we have to, again, juxtapose what may happen legally with what we want to do as a business matter. Okay, i.e. if we want to have a higher level of remediation than the option 3, the alternative number 3, and that's what the public says, but we still have this letter out there that's lurking around, that really compromises our position. So again, I'd like Mr. King to go back and see if we can actually say whether we've rescinded that letter and brought out a new one in order that we can make sure the MOU is good. I think that's it for tonight. And again, I look forward to checking with Mr. Lois on the Oak Knoll thing, and thank you again for your
Thank
time.
you, Mr. Carr. All right, is there anybody else?
We have no other hand raised.
Okay, so we can close this hearing of citizens.
Just one more point, just I guess it's part of the hearing, just in response to that. I think we said this before, he mentioned Mr. King a few times there, but my understanding is that Carl would be the appropriate person to deal with that or investigate that issue, correct?
Yes. And I just like to say about Oakdale Fields, you'd be very happy that the Recreation Committee has pursued the Oakdale Fields, and they were available for use for soccer, for a playoff situation, and they didn't require them. But that will be back on the discussion this Wednesday night.
Okay, now we're moving
Can I
to,
bring something up?
oh, yeah.
Is it time to make a motion now, or when do I have a special? time?
Did you close out?
I closed the public hearing of citizens, yes.
And now I can.
We're moving to ordinances?
Yeah, that's what's next on the agenda.
Is it related to this ordinance?
No, it's not related to anything.
You can make a motion, Mary.
I would just like to make a motion that we bring back the second, speaking of citizens. It seems that a lot of people would like to do that. And also, it would give Tara a chance to speak again. She wouldn't have had to rush through her presentation. So,
I'll second that motion.
I object to the form of this motion because this motion is related to the bylaws. We do not have the independent ability to hear this motion, so the motion is improper. If it was brought properly, we could hear this.
well, when can I do it properly?
But we're amending
Is
bylaws.
there a second to my objection?
And we have a motion and a second right now, so we're in discussion as far as I know.
Well,
That's not about this one.
yeah, I tend to agree, it's a change to the bylaws,
So
Defer to
we'll have to go to the
you
attorney.
have to redo all your bylaws again,
So the motion would be to change bylaws,
because that's in your bylaws, you vote on that in the beginning of the year.
right?
So she wants to modify the motion to change the bylaws to add the second public hearing. Is that?
I already made a motion to postpone this.
My
motion
suggestion
indefinitely.
would be, if we're gonna change the bylaws, we should have the written bylaws in front of everybody rather than,
Mr. King, can you help us here?
So, well, there's a motion,
Mike,
microphone.
there was a motion made with regard to, I think you were asking Elizabeth the end of Robert's rules with making this motion at this time.
That's right. I had objected to the.
And your issue was that because that part is in the bylaws, that you can't just bring a part of a bylaw, you have to revisit the whole bylaw, which is correct. So if you want to put it on, try to put it on an agenda at some other time, we can revisit that.
Okay, yes, I would like to do that.
Okay, so we're moving to our introduction of ordinances.
I just want to clarify, sorry. Can the bylaws be amended at any time? Every meeting, we could theoretically amend the bylaws, or when they're voted on, considered, discussed, and voted on for the year at the organizational
You do it
meeting.
for a year.
The bylaws.
Every year you amend your bylaws.
Right.
So you can amend
But could they
it.
theoretically be amended at every meeting, is the question I'm asking.
It's not good practice. Usually you amend them in the beginning of the year for that whole year.
In the past, we have amended them throughout the year, but administratively speaking, my preference would be have them in front of you before you start voting on stuff rather than having it written after the fact.
All right, so we're going to introduction of ordinances. First ordinance is number 2022-03 capping ordinance. Bob, can you give us a little background on this one?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is an annual ordinance that is done. This allows the township to have flexibility with its cap. We have a cap of 2.5%. This allows us to go up to 3.5%. So there would be a 1% increase. And there's a 3-year rolling average with this. So this cap bank ordinance would be valid for 2022, but it allows us, if there's a need, to use cap bank from 2020 as well as calendar year 2021. So this is a 3-year rolling average, and then it gives the township flexibility. So this would increase it would add approximately $124,786.63 to the cap bank calculations of the township so needed.
Okay,
And this is something that's done every year. The township committees do this every year, and it gives the township flexibility. There's been rare occasions where the township has had to dip into the cap bank, but that remains to be seen if that will be needed in the future.
is there any other discussions?
To me, when I look at this ordinance and I read through it, it seems to me to provide for a tax increase above above the cap. Would that be correct?
The current
cap. So we have a cap of 2.5% unless authorized by ordinance to increase it to 3.5% over the previous year's fiscal appropriations. That's sort of how it reads.
What it does is it gives the township flexibility if there's some emergency that comes up. It's not a tax increase. It gives it flexibility. So in calendar year 2021, the cap bank calculation was $303,000, and that was not required. In year 2020 was $175,000.
But this township has seen a 20% tax in the last few years. And to predict or project that our municipality will need a further tax increase this year is not what I'm seeing from our budget committee. And I don't think that saying that we need to raise taxes or we possibly need to ask people to pay even more would be appropriate. And so for that reason, I move that this ordinance be postponed indefinitely.
If I may, this is not a tax increase, but it's an option, but it's a 3-year option. So this gives the township flexibility in the future years. So this cap bank for 2022 will be able to be moved forward for 2 additional years if the township so needs it. So
Now, next year, could we pass it if we needed it?
you would pass a different cap bank.
But you would lose out on this year's.
But you would lose out on the option for using this year's funds for 2022. You'd lose out on that option.
You'd have less money available to you down the road.
But
Potentially.
if we don't have the money, let's be very clear, we don't have the money. This is a taxing authority to increase taxes. And we've had a 20% tax increase in the last 2 years. We don't predict needing to have, and I have personally campaigned on no tax increase this year and minimal tax increases in any subsequent years. And I don't believe that we should be passing an ordinance that's going to give us flexibility to put additional taxes when we've already increased taxes 20% in the previous 2 years. And for that reason, again, I move that we table this, that we postpone indefinitely this ordinance.
Could I ask a question about 2 things? Well, just to clarify a point, when you say we're quote unquote banking, that's a very specific word, we're banking and you're throwing dollar figures around. We're not actually banking anything. What we're doing is creating, as you call it, flexibility to essentially authorize spending in that amount that would have to, the money would have to come from somewhere. That's all we're doing is we're creating a mechanism by which future committee could levy, spending and corresponding taxes that exceed the cap, the normal cap. Correct.
The answer is yes. You're giving future township committees the flexibility if they need it to have the ability to, yes.
See the cap.
Yes, you would exceed by two, so if you put 2.5 in for next year, theoretically, you go 5% in that year instead of 2.5. So you could carry at most,
You can only carry the maximum of, it can only be a 3.5%.
3.5, so then you could go up 1%.
1% each year.
Each year. So is there a scenario where a particular annual embodiment of the committee could exceed 3.5% if you banked this 3 years in a row?
No, because each year, you can only use 3 years. You can only use three succeeding years. So next year, 2020 drops off, and you would redo the calculation. There's a formula that the state gives you. And going.
Right, but after, say you did it in 1 year, then you did it another year, and then you came into the third year, the combined total of the banked amount, to use the phrase, could that constitute an amount in excess of 3.5%?
No, it's a maximum of 3.5%. So it's based on the calculations. You can only go up to 3.5% for whatever that budget year is if you need it. Most years the township has not needed it. It's just fallen off, but it's
So if we
it's a
don't,
good piece of mind to have.
if we don't anticipate us needing it this year, I just don't see why it's.
Because you may need, well, I'm sorry, please.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
It's
I'm
just
trying to understand.
Yeah, the future township committees may need that option.
Okay, so if it's a future township committee needs the ability to raise more money and raise the cap, can't they pass this?
They
Because
can
it's
pass,
only
they-
1% a year anyway.
they would be able to pass the adopt the cap bank for that year. And so they would be able to adopt it for whatever the year was. But if it's not, if the cap bank isn't adopted for a year, then you only have the option to have whatever the ratio is for 2 years, or the amount of money for 2 years. You don't have 3 years.
Seems like you should be able to predict 3 years out into the future, know whether you're gonna need this. I just sort of switching gears. Earlier you said that this is something that's done every year. Can you walk us through the history of that? Like every year, you mean every year for the last 30 years, the last 3 years? What are we talking about when we say every year?
Well, at least the last 7, I don't, and it's probably 15. I don't know.
I know if you go back, when I've looked back on budgets, that there was always a discussion of the cap bank and what was rolling off or what needed to be used, So it's always been that was one thing Tom Chickarone, because nobody really pays attention to the cap bank, but I know I remember he used to have in his presentation year after year, so certainly. And it's really just a safety measure in case of emergency it's needed, so it's not, and it does roll off. So it's always been passed. I mean, in terms of, in your experience and working with our other administrators, is this the best practice across towns that most tend to do it? And they set aside, they pass an ordinance just to make sure they have an emergency reserve?
Yes.
And I shouldn't say reserve because there's no money set aside. This just allows, gives authorization to assess at a higher rate.
I don't predict needing to use this cap bank this year or next year. And while this cap bank ordinance has come to us in March, it could come to us in April, or it could come to us.
It has to be adopted before the budget.
Well, and the issue is that we haven't had an opportunity to review the budget with the wider committee. And when they see the capital reserve, the growth that we're having in capital reserve, and many other aspects of the budget, and the way way that we apply money this year that are completely different than what's been done in the past. In a similar way that we restructured debt in a way that's completely different than things that have happened in the past, the ways we've done in the past. I think it's very clear, we don't need to continue to add to 20% tax increase that we put onto residents in the past 2 years. And this only serves to increase taxes. It has nothing to do with bringing any other value, service, or anything to our residents. There are many other ways to get emergency funds, and if there was an emergency. And those ways have been explored in December. Those ways have been explored, can be explored with our bond council. There are many different ways of doing that. When I refer to December, I refer to the money that was potentially going to be used or tapped into to go for. So there's lots of ways to do emergency funding, and to use that term is just a way to hide the idea that we're giving additional upside increases in flexibility to future committees on top of a 20% tax increase that we've had in the last 2 years. And I do not think that's appropriate.
I don't believe, this is not a tax increase. This is not something that directly affects the tax dollars that we're talking about in the budget. This is something that helps us plan budgets, and it's something that is a good tool to have for the future, for current needs in the future. We don't have a need for it this year, but we may have a need for it next year. This is just part of a good fiscal planning process. And if the Township Committee doesn't want to adopt this tonight, I would ask that it just be tabled until the March 22nd meeting so we can have a better discussion on it.
I was just gonna ask that question. Procedurally, could this be tabled and revisited and still be adopted in conformance with what we would need to do?
If you don't take any action, then we can just put it on the next agenda for further consideration.
Well, at a minimum, I would make that motion. I just,
We don't need a motion. If you take no action at all, then we can just carry it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I also, it probably won't surprise you, think that one iteration of the committee's definition of an emergency and another's might be very, very different. And what we're doing here is authorizing tax increases, potential tax increases, understandably, in excess of the cap that is in place to protect the citizens of the community. And I'd like to, I know you guys are working hard on the budget, maybe we could see that a little bit more in the coming weeks. That would be my view.
Well, then I'd ask that the Township Committee take no action on this tonight. But this is something important that we need to, evaluate on the second.
Okay, I'm okay with taking no action.
Okay. So moving on to ordinance number 4.
Yes. Is there any discussion? This is the ordinance regarding loitering in a public place.
Do we have a motion?
Well, we have not introduced it or anything. I figured if there was a discussion first, and then we can move to introduce
Or
it.
technically, we need the motion to have discussion on the
Oh,
motion.
all right. Is there a motion to, I guess, have it introduce this ordinance? I thought it was a motion to.
A motion to
discuss.
introduce. And
All
then
right,
you'll be
motion to
discussing.
introduce.
Second.
Okay, is there a discussion on this?
I had a question. The language on the first page, this is for Mr. King, language on the first page under C. It talks about a whole bunch of, it talks about not conflicting with state law. And by the way, is this like standard language, or is there a
Yes,
concern that we potentially are conflicting with state law?
No, you can't, a municipality
Mr. King,
can't pass a ordinance.
Microphone.
A municipality can't pass an ordinance where the state has granted it.
Mhm.
So what we're doing is we're putting in there that this ordinance won't preempt with these other state laws, where the state has said that there's a 2-city criminal charge for these types of things.
So this is kind of standard.
Yes.
Okay, because when I read it, it kind of seemed like,
We're trying to put, it's
you're
trying to
thinking we
say,
might.
it's trying to say that we're not conflicting with this, the state has this, we're not entering this, doesn't have anything to do with that law that they preempt, this law that they preempt, the third, I think there's 3 in there.
Yeah.
I defer to Mr. King, but I think it's kind of like language you frequently see in contracts. It says like, if something we agree to in this contract is invalid, it's a matter of law, the rest of the contract.
Which actually that language is in here too. This was kind of confusing, so that's why I just want to make sure it's standard language.
I just wanted to give a little bit of background on this. Essentially, Chatham Township is one of the safest towns in New Jersey. And we really just want to keep it that way. So I reached out to the chief of police maybe a month or so ago and asked him, what can we do to make sure that our town, it remains to be one of the safest towns in New Jersey? What can we do to prevent, and obviously the first and foremost is what Mr. Hamilton reminds us all at every meeting, make sure our car doors are locked and we're not allowing ourselves to have cars stolen. But another option, when I continued chatting with our chief, was possibly instituting a loitering ordinance. I thought it was a fantastic idea. So I asked Mr. King as well as our municipal prosecutor to put something together. And so our chief has reviewed this, our municipal prosecutor has also looked into this as well. And that's where it came to today. But so go on.
Well, I just like to add, I'm very happy to report that this is not a colossal problem in
Correct.
Township, so I don't want anybody to be worried about it, but it's just another tool
This is a
for maintaining public
preventative.
safety, just, people hanging around for seemingly unscrupulous purposes and stuff. It allows the police officers.
This is not an occurring problem. That's actually absolutely correct. It's more of preventative. If they see people congregating in an area, they need to have some sort of tool to be able to break them up. If it was at a park or anywhere, they just want to have that tool. And that's a useful tool.
Does that include coming to township committee meetings?
Any other questions, discussion items? Or can we move to a motion to, or I guess sorry, move a roll call vote to adopt?
Mrs. Ewell?
Yes, it's introduced.
Introduce, excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton?
Yes.
And Mayor Felice?
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing will be on the 22nd.
Great. Okay, our next ordinance that we're discussing to introduce is the adopting standards for security cameras. Is there a motion to introduce? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so also a little background on this, again, this was also a discussion with our chief when I asked, what can we do to ensure our town remains as safe as possible? And we were discussing security cameras. As you notice on our agenda, one of the items is a resolution to purchase security cameras at Nash Field and Shunpike Field. So what this will do, and these security cameras that we're installing, it's a little different, but those security cameras are actually hooked up to Morris County system. So it allows the police to have access to all this, the whole massive system. And they get alerted immediately if a bad guy essentially is in the process of a crime, comes into our town and goes by those cameras. So this ordinance is a little different. This is more allowing or requiring security cameras for any type of residential dwelling unit, of over 8 units or a type of commercial structure over 10,000 square feet. And allowing our police to have access to them if there was a situation of a crime where they needed to have access to them.
I had one super minor point on this, which is, I think there might be a punctuation mark missing. All in section A, all newly constructed residential dwelling units, comma, including but not limited to condominium complexes of more than 8 dwelling units. That could be read as saying all newly constructed residential dwelling units, which could be read as meaning a single family home.
Yeah.
So I think it's supposed to be all newly constructed residential dwelling units, comma, including but not limited to condominium complexes, comma, of more than 8 dwelling units.
Okay.
That's what it's supposed to be, right?
So in
That was the question I had submitted to the attorney earlier, but I thought we need to remove including but not limited to, but if it's satisfied by adding a comma, but I say I agree, I didn't want.
Right.
I would be satisfied.
It would be satisfied by adding that comment?
Yes.
Okay. Any other issues, questions?
We also had a conversation, so when I talked to the chief about this one, he said part of what prompted it was behind the malls, I guess, I don't know specifically where it is, that a cooking oil that's valued at like $3,000, which is insane to me, I've never heard of such a thing, apparently it's, yeah, so there's some value to it, so, but this would not trigger for those properties, for existing, so in terms of large scale properties, there's really nothing that's coming online, we've got 522 Southern Boulevard, but I don't know if that, because it already went through preliminary reviews, it would even count. So the question is, is there a way to put a clause in that if there's a major renovation of these sites?
You just have to define major renovation. I don't know if you would do that by space or investment. Most new construction, they are installing, video camera security systems. It would just be the definition of a major renovation. If someone put on a roof, had to qualify. We just have to figure out a way to qualify.
So is that something, I mean, if you kind of look and see what standard language is out there, can we still introduce, I guess we have to reintroduce with that language then?
That would be a major change to the ordinance.
Reintroduce the word. Well, before we get to that, one question I think is really important for the obvious reasons that, can we get clarification about whether this ordinance, if it were to be adopted now, or I realize we're just introducing it, but to be adopted in the near future, would be applicable to 522 Southern Boulevard? Like, would it take effect immediately or anything built starting the next day, or would it have, would what Mr. Newell said about them having had some steady level of preliminary review already? It sounds like a big addition.
Their preliminary plans.
So I guess you could, at a time, there's a rule where all approvals for development get approved by the ordinance, which are in effect when they get their approval. So anything after that wouldn't be required by that rule. Yeah. So
They're protected by preliminary approval, but they're coming in for final. We could ask them to comply and see if they're willing to.
do they
We know their plans already and all.
So what's the question?
Yeah, so we can put it, yeah, so we can put it in the developers agreement. We request, that.
Also, if we want this to apply to renovations of commercial space, we could easily just pass something else that then reference this ordinance, right? So, and we would make it so that renovate commercial space to be permanent. So in order for your permit to, in order for you to apply for your permit to satisfy, you would have to comply with the same ordinance for, newly constructed residential. So we can introduce something that's let's say it's over 5,000 square feet. Most commercials, most commercial businesses want cameras anyway. It's really a question of, are you satisfying the exterior views that the police are interested in? So I think we could craft something separately for that.
I like Mrs. Eval's point for sure. I think that should, but I don't necessarily see them as strictly intertwined. I think we could adopt this, but I definitely think we should explore that too, which is,
So
making, wherever possible, requiring exterior cameras.
So maybe that would be a separate ordinance,
Separate,
since this would be just covering all the new construction. And a separate one that would handle existing structures.
Is if you want, we can move forward with this ordinance, just to get it on the books, and then, as you say, do a separate ordinance.
I would say a separate ordinance that would handle existing structures, since we would have to definitely define what a substantial renovation would be, and I think there's gonna be other aspects to that as well.
And just like my comment earlier about those issues, my suggestion would be have the writing in front of you before
Yeah.
I start taking action on it.
I agree. Okay, so then can we get a vote on introducing this ordinance as is with the addition of that one comma?
Yes. Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
And this, again, we'll have a public hearing of March 22nd.
Okay, so now we're gonna move to the consent agenda, but it's only a couple of, okay, so we're
If
doing,
you'd like, I can review. what we
yeah,
said.
which ones? That would be great.
Okay, it'll be resolution 2022-081, payment of bills. 82, approving minutes of meetings. 83, approving executive session minutes. 84, approving social fair permit. 85, refunding overpayment and taxes. Then we took out 86 and 87. So it'll include 88, authorizing trench restoration. It'll include the salary resolution, 192. 98 comes off, that's the energy auction. Then 99 is off, so it'll also include appointing assistant public works manager and appointing wastewater treatment facility manager.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt? And a second? And is there a roll call vote?
Mrs. Ewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so now let's go to resolution 86, authorize necessary improvements to Mountain View Field for year-round use. Would you like to discuss?
Yeah. You doing the motion yet or no? Which is, because I'll discuss.
Oh, I figured, well, let's just discuss the,
Okay.
just
Well,
move to.
Yeah, move the motion.
Oh, okay, okay, can I get a motion to, what is it?
I moved
Adopt?
that- Yeah, I moved that we approved,
Adopt,
2022-86.
okay, is there a second? Okay, discussion.
Sure. So the reason I pulled this out, and it's pretty much the same as Mayor Conley.
Well, what point of order, sorry, could we just for purely procedural purposes, discuss all three of these at once? Is that possible? I mean, they're.
It's the same issue,
Same issue.
council, pretty much.
Yes, as long as the answer is the same for all three, it's the same issue.
So then that would be moving this resolution. Resolution,
86, 87, and 89.
yes.
Yes.
So is that your motion to adopt all three of those?
Yes.
Is there a second for that?
I do like it.
We changed it.
Yeah, two more.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Okay, now discuss.
So I think that I got a lot of calls about these, and the reason is people aren't used to seeing ordinance, resolutions that are things that we expect are being done on a normal course of business. Now, I understand for whatever reason there hasn't been maintenance done, which I don't understand why that's not the case. But, and it definitely needs to get done, but the fear from these three things, and this is what I want to confirm, certainly there's an overall fear that pesticides are gonna be used. You know, the question is there any additional unexpected costs that we, you know, aren't being communicated here? Is it adequate, you know, we're gonna, basically, are we doing the same thing we've always, or we should have been doing? Is there anything new that's being taken on? Because it's very vague.
Right. My understanding was it's literally to bring, it's more to bring light that this, it hasn't been done, it hasn't been done. And yes, it should be done. I have no, like I said before, I have no interest in trying to skirt the existing pesticide ordinance. That's not my intent by any means. I have no interest in doing it. Just want to make sure that's abundantly clear. I literally just want the field operable and playable and safe for our kids, because I think that's ultimately what the township residents care about. So that's why they're on the agenda, is to make it well known that we're basically, we agree. I think this is what a lot of residents care about, and this is what our priorities are. So it's more of announcing priorities and letting everybody know we are instructing this to be done in that manner. That's the way I see it.
And the ordinances are cited in all three resolutions.
Yeah, I did that, I mean, that was done intentionally.
All three of them says, whereas all fields and facilities must be managed in accordance with ordinance 2021-15, we all know what that is. And I think the real issue is just the fact that whether it was COVID, I don't know, so, but you know, for the last 2 years, with these particular sites in particular, you know, there just has not been maintenance, and they have fallen into disrepair. I mean, they've been mowed and such, but so it's just, we're resolving to instruct our people at the DPW to do what they got to do to get these fields back in place in compliance with ordinance 21-15.
The one thing I will say is, was for the Mountain View field. I did think it would be necessary to get a pest control, ideally, or, you know, our organic pest control of some sort to get rid of those ground nesting wasps. And we haven't been using that field in years, decades. So we, you know, whatever we need to do to get those wasps out of the area, I think, but that's still in accordance to our ordinance that allows for use of pesticides when there is an infestation. I remember having this discussion, and I think that infestation of those wasps qualifies for that. That's the only thing that I think
you
might
have to get like more information about that and how they can be dealt with.
Yeah, obviously, the preference would be the friendliest one.
Of course.
Yeah.
But they need to go.
We need. Yeah,
nobody's used that field, and it's because of this infestation. And I don't think that's right. I don't think we should be asking our children to revolve our schedules and stuff around the breeding session or whatever it is they're doing over there. I don't know. That's all. Other than that, I'm all for organic, I'm all for no pesticides, I'm all for, you know, no herbicides, all that type of stuff on normal maintenance, but I think that is the only exception because it is a full infestation of these ground nesting wasps. I think
Even that is, we're going out of our way to cite
They're
possible.
called cicada killers.
Cicada killers, whatever they
Yeah,
are.
we tried to get rid of them about 13, 14 years ago. We had a pest control company come in and, you know, you've seen how well it's worked. I don't know
Right.
what was used, but I know we have tried in the past to get rid of it with marginal success.
That's the only thing I think is worthy of pesticides. Make sure that's clear.
To be investigated.
Yes.
Correct.
And our ordinance just lay out a process, right? So there's a process that has to be gone through at any point, and pesticides are last resort. I would also like just to note that these ordinances are our laws.
They're what?
There are laws. These are our requirements. Our Department of Public Works follows our laws. That should be our minimum expectation, and we certainly all do expect that. No one on this committee is going out to maintain these fields or do any of this work. So this work is going to be done by people that we're very grateful that they work for this township, or they're going to be managed by people that work for this township, and they're going to follow our laws. Those are our laws. So I think that there is some level of just rancor and division, which we need to dispense with, and suspicion, we need to dispense with, because it's not productive, and it's slowing us down from even common things that we all agree on, which is let's follow the ordinances that we have established, which by our environmental commission are the strictest in the state or among the strictest. Bringing these things up continually to cast doubt on what might be doing, or that there could be some other alternative than what is clearly stated. It implies in some way that we are, that something is controlling what happens other than our laws. And that is in fact not the case. What controls what happens are our ordinances, are our laws.
Okay, so just following up on my second point, because part of this again is that residents have a right to know exactly what's getting done. So that's where the questions come from, that's where the interest comes from. I can't help if there's a trust issue. So the other question I had, so in terms of what's in the budget or what's normally done and what was discussed, aeration, seeding, I guess, what else did I mention? Organic treatment. So that could be, that's the expectation for these three improvements. Is there anything else that was anticipated? Are you anticipating anything else? And potentially some dealing with the wasps.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I'd like to just make one point that the DPW they maintain the fields, they cut the fields, and they do other things. We had an organic program, and that worked, but then it was there was not sufficient funding for it during calendar year 2021. So that's why it was not followed up upon. So with the policy direction of the township committee and the identification of other funds that can be used, we will be able to solicit quotes for some of the work that needs to be done, because we had gone out and there was only one company at the time that was available to do the work with the organic process, and there's I believe that there's a couple more that are doing it now. So we will follow up. I just wanted to make the point that this was not the DPW. They are mowing the lawns. They're doing what's needed, but it was because of the cost of some of the programs that's why that was stopped. But just we will reorganize and do it.
It certainly wasn't intended, if anybody heard it that way, to imply any falling out of the job by the DPW. That's not.
Yeah, thank you. That was
the actual statement that it didn't happen.
Yeah, that was the point that I was trying to make. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and then the only thing I'll follow up on with that is also that we have done a lot of innovative things in this budget, and we are pursuing funds that have not been used before, and funds that are sources to alleviate the budget in other ways other than returning to our taxpayers. We are doing different things that have been done in the past, and that is what has created the funds to do this. And those different things that we're doing than in the past do not require taxpayer funds. And what taxpayers can rely on to inform them of that is that I do not anticipate any tax increase in this current budget. but there will be improved services.
All right, can we go to a vote?
Mrs. Ewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Madako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so now we're on resolution 90, authorizing refurbishment of Colony Tennis Courts. Can I get a motion to adopt? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And discussion.
So this one, again, it's kind of cryptic and not what we're used to seeing, so it raises questions. The first question I have is, this is a renovation of tennis court, which is anticipated at about $75,000. But we don't, normally we would have authorization to get a request for proposals, and one of the versions was just that. So I guess I'm wondering why that's not in this version.
I thought because we didn't need it.
There was a version that was before this committee that said, the press proposals as prepared by an engineer. It was for, a request for proposal to, I'm sorry, for an engineer to provide a quote. And for the type, that was when refurbishment was going to be looking possibly more like a complete replacement. And this is more of a repair, which would be more on a contractor level.
But for $75,000, we still bid that out. Don't you normally bid that out?
Yes.
If it's over 44,000.
Yeah.
But essentially
This doesn't prevent us from getting it.
no, you pass the resolution, and then the administrator would, bid out whatever is in that bid requirement. I don't know if it would fall under, the 75 under the bid threshold, but if it goes over the bid threshold, yes, you'd have to bid that out.
Yeah, so normally we authorize
would
the
come back.
administrator, but this resolution does not authorize the administrator to.
Do we need to
issue that
include?
request.
It basically, this resolution in essence is requesting in Bob to bid it. I think you did have bids at one point in time, they were
Do we need to include like?
The question is
specific
that language necessary?
No, because you could just direct it to do that. That's an administrative function.
So this is where we're backwards. We
Okay.
direct it to detail.
So why don't we include a line in there that specifically, directs the
Directs or authorizes?
authorizes. Okay, so then like, another whereas,
You probably want that to be part of the.
so the therefore, yes. Okay, let me see. Authorize necessary maintenance, repair, and improvement to the colony quote.
I would just add to the end.
Yeah.
And authorizes or directs the administrator to
Thank you.
take the request proposals. to
And
accomplish the same.
authorizes
Okay.
the administrator.
To prepare the necessary bid documents.
Yes, to prepare and submit.
It's say if necessary, because we're part of 9 different cooperative purchasing organizations. So if there's contractors that are on that, then we wouldn't have to go out to bid.
So.
Okay, prepare bid documents as
Authorize and directs
necessary.
the administrator.
To prepare bid documents if necessary.
Yeah.
Easy,
Simple.
simple. Are we all good with that?
Beautiful.
Okay, can we get a motion?
Oh,
Oh, you got more.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, so we're all in agreement we need the tennis courts done. It's been in the capital plan. It was actually a full refurbishment, but I guess the intent was initially to just fix it, which is what the short-term thing is going to be. But there's got to be some discussion at some point at a larger scale, replacement needs to be made. But in the meantime, it's in the capital plan. The part that I disagree with and I want it taken out is second page, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. Whereas it is appropriate to request that the school district of the Chattel provide a capital contribution to this tennis court refurbishment, as these are the primary courts used by the high school tennis varsity program. I don't know why we're getting into a pissing match when all the money's coming from the same source. To start moving money from one bucket to the other when before Mr. Lowe's jumps in. When the school district, the entire community uses Cougar Field, the entire community uses the baseball fields behind the high school. We use the gyms in the schools, and we don't get charged back at this level, the township level, for residents use, and they don't shut those doors for outside residents use.
Mr. Gilfillan on the Board of Education is the Recreation Committee liaison, and he requested as a courtesy that I included that.
Well, yeah, and then you should probably talk to the school district and the land chair, because they don't have money to be putting in. If he requested it, he probably requested for those fields, for those tennis courts to be fixed.
No, he asked for.
Sorry,
No.
he requested that I request from the school district to make a capital contribution.
Okay. I'm still gonna object. I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. I can't vote for it with that in there.
All right, so then let's vote.
Mrs. Ewald,
I'm gonna have to abstain.
Mrs. Findaco,
I'm just saying no.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next one is authorizing installations of security cameras at National Shellway Fields. Is there a motion to adopt? Anyone?
So moved.
Is there a second? Anyone?
Second.
Bueller,
All right, is there discussion?
Yep. So this one says it's 62,000, same thing. Normally go out to bid, but I'm trying to figure out, was this
This was
already
a
bid?
co-op, so the prices were fixed.
So we would not have to bid.
Yes.
You go through a co-op, it's already been essentially bid into the co-op, so you don't have to bid for those.
It's basically all of Morris County.
The co-op for this is from Bergen County.
Bergen.
It's the,
which we joined last year.
yeah, so this is, this is one of those 9, this is, we joined because we purchased something from them last year.
Just to quick clarify, when we joined the co-op has already done all the necessary bid documents and all that stuff, and as a member, we are entitled to that pricing,
Okay.
but they've already done the due diligence.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, can we get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Findaco?
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next are the appointing and pre-qualifying financial advisor. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah.
My only thing is we're not disparaging any of these professionals. All I'm gonna say.
Actually, all three are very qualified, so there's no disparaging. And in general, there's no need to disparage, it's really just to explain to residents who want to know why we pick one or the other. So when I look at the financial advisors, I guess I'm just wondering how this is gonna work, and maybe Bob can give me some sense. Phoenix Advisors is working with us now, so they're appointed for this year. And then we have the other 2 as backup for this year, which if we issue anything, we would issue bans, we wouldn't anticipate needing financial advisors for ban issues. And if we have need to issue bonds again, but then there's kind of a cost there also.
Correct, we have Phoenix Advisors, they're working with us on the April bond issue. They're appointed, they're in this resolution. If something comes up in the future, then if Phoenix Advisors can't assist us, we have these other 2 that we can turn to, or we can do some kind of an evaluation. They may have a specialty that Phoenix doesn't, but that's the option. We have the primary and we have 2 backups.
Okay. I didn't really see why they were needed, because doesn't sound like there's much going on this year, but that's what I was trying to figure out how it's going to work. Okay.
Can we get a vote?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Findaco?
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next is the resolution appointing risk management consultant. Is there a motion to adopt?
So, I'll second that this time.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, so when I was reviewing this, we had Kubo. What is the timing of you, how does that work? Because this says like March 6th and there's a contract included in here, or as opposed to the other ones, there's no contract included. Is that gonna work with our insurance coverage? It sounds like a light switch here is gonna.
If I may, what would occur is our current risk manager is on a 3-month holdover, so they would serve through the end of March, and then the new group would take over April 1st. We would also need that time to notify the JIF and make the necessary, so that they can make the necessary changes. There's also issues that need to be verified. There's the contract that has to be signed, but then there's the compensation issues that have to be verified for the 2 risk managers. So that's why the changeover would wind up being April 1st.
And then, but in terms of coverage, because they have to come in, they have to do a full risk assessment, or you have to bring them up to speed in terms of the property and.
Right, there would be no coverage changes. Our coverage right now is bound through the JIF, so there's.
Coverage is in place already.
The JIF has a 3-year policy. If you wanted to get out of it, you could have to notice and have to get to them. But they're bound by 3 years. I don't know when you entered into that 3-year period, but obviously would probably been re-entered into. It's re-entered usually into the beginning of a year, so you maybe you're into your 2nd or 3rd year of that 3-year policy period. And your health care is through the
State health benefits.
Mhm.
So was the question, would this affect our current liability policy?
The timing in terms of switching over the vendor versus our coverage, and making sure there's no loss of coverage during this.
No, the current policies with the JIF stay in place. They're in place through December 31st of this year.
And the risk manager really just reviews the risks of the building, your assets, there's a properly insured.
Yeah, I've read enough of these, I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
and sometimes they find, because there's a new one, they'll find something that you can take off of that is assessed too high, so that you can get a better premium.
Okay, so in this case, we're choosing one. I'm fine that we didn't choose Kupo again. I liked Fairview, PIA, Acrisure, all had good references, all had comprehensive service. PIA came in at 5%. Fairview said 6%, but they were willing to match what we currently have, which is 4.5%. Acrisure in the contract, it's saying 6%. So I'm wondering why we're paying up. And he didn't even have anything in his, in the RFQ response.
Because the JIF pays basically them directly, so it wouldn't come through on our bill list.
Yeah, but we're paying 4.5%. People say they're 4.5% of the JIF premium. Is there a reason why the contract says 6% when we could get 4.5%?
That's what they price.
I don't think they have price in the contract.
It's 6%.
So they're just talking about the state commissions. I didn't see 6% at all. But either way, right, you know, like I said, we had 3 very qualified.
If that needs to be updated in the resolution, that 6%, if that needs to be updated to 4.5. Because like that language is pulled from what we've been doing for years, but if Acrisure was, what'd you say, 4.5%?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, our job is to get the best provider at the cheapest price. So to me, there were 3 options that were very impressive. And somehow we wound up picking the guy and paying him, even though his RFQ response did not have a price in it. We paid him the most, so I want to know if we could renegotiate that.
Well, the other ones had hourly fees though too. So there was like an actual discussion on this. It wasn't just straight by percentages.
Kupo did, I don't think PIA, my two were otherwise, PIA, Fairview, and Acrisure were all good. I didn't see other fees in any of them, they all had that sound fee, so I just want to make sure we're not overpaying, and we don't need to. Who negotiated the 6%?
No, but so what did Acrisure say in their proposal, if that's who we're
We
going?
just talked about commissions when it comes to the state, not state, when it comes to private insurers, they talked about that they have set rates in their insurance contracts. So it refers to, that's why they just said commission, whatever the standard commissions are coming from those private insurers. They didn't reference the percentage for general. So who negotiated 6%?
We're talking about this,
It's technical or not. It was
this 6%, yeah, that's the same language that's the committee's been adopting for 16 plus years. So that wasn't necessarily something that was newly negotiated by anyone. It's just, you know, something that's was negotiated probably 20, 25 years ago. And
Oh, okay, because people have 4.5%. But either way, you know, these are all new contracts, so again, that's value for our residents, our Township residents. If we can get 4.5 or 5%, I wouldn't go with the standard language. This is the whole point of getting out of contract.
But Mr. O'Connor, if I understand you correctly, this agreement has run with the township, it's not produced by the bidder.
precisely.
Okay.
And then this language was sent out for review. If there's something that needs to be corrected, please tell me.
That's
And
what
I'll fix it.
I'm saying now,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm getting information.
So what did we pay last year? Was our agreement, was our contractual arrangement with our risk management consultant last year?
Was Kupo was 6%.
Why are we?
Because he bid 4.5% in his bid.
So he offered to lower his,
Maybe he never looked at it.
is that what I'm understanding, that he?
But we pay the assessment every year.
Okay,
So
we're in
But-
the
but-
process to save money.
This is the first time that I've been here that we've actually had an RFQ for this.
I think.
I mean, I think ultimately anybody said, you know, gives us whatever they want to do. Sorry, yes.
If you could just, maybe, pull this, and what I'll do is I'll call each of the people.
Can we carry?
And then, attempt to try to bring it down to
Okay.
a number, because it looks like this consultant, this risk management consultant did not put that 6% in. I think it was just carried over from a previous contract.
Yeah, so if you want, we can hold off just so we make sure that we're adopting the right numbers.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
No, and that's fine, because we have, the carryovers through the end of March, so
We have one more week. We have one more meeting, so we need.
Okay.
We don't have to increase, this is a resolution, this is just adopt.
Yeah.
Thank God for the little mix.
Yeah, so you guys can, I guess withdraw your motion. We'll just carry this to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, the next one would be then resolution 95 appointing a pre-qualifying labor council. Is there a motion to introduce? Is there a second? And is there discussion?
That would be to adopt.
Did I say adopt or?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Adopt.
It's like, oh, nitpicking, if you never speak, just goes, calls me Hamilton a few times now, you're like, good about yourself.
Good, Mr. Hoffman.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so again, I'm looking at getting the bench press the people at the cheapest cost. And it's
I don't look into these, no.
the best venture people at the cheapest cost.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand there's 2 parts.
Yeah.
You know, it's important for the public that they witness in full detail according to the Public Meetings Act and our decision-making process and our deliberation. The standouts, in my opinion, were Cleary, which I think, are we in agreement on Cleary?
There was one issue with that, let's see, well, they're the firm, their firm is the borough's attorney, so we thought if there's any type of conflict
For Labor Council?
for labor council. We have joint agreements with them. We share, the library, if there's an issue with the library, and also with the recreation.
Well, that's
So
a
that
shame,
was-
because they were.
They're a great firm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would
Okay.
agree with erring on the side of caution there.
Yeah.
They're already.
Dakotas, I think, we're keeping Rickman and Rock, they're working on some stuff, so that's maybe even more expensive. Dakotas, you guys didn't choose, you look to stand out for me, Plozia, you chose,
Dakotas,
and then
and for like
Chase.
2 other spots, so we did try and switch it up. Not give the same ones for
So that's what I was trying to figure out why the other ones came out, because these were the standouts for me. So kind of what the thought process was that elevated Bell, Shivas and Bell, Dasty and Associates.
We're discussing labor, are we?
Yeah,
I only have,
I have Bell, Schultz, Bell, D. Francisco Bateman, Plosia and Cohen, and Ruderman and Roth. Just 4.
Ruderman and Roth, Plosia Cohen, Dasty and Associates.
Not Darcy, D. Francisco Bateman.
Oh, I have my market there. Okay, so we're in agreement. Well, Di Francesco, okay.
And,
Bill,
yeah,
Shoes, Bill.
yeah.
So Bell, Shivas.
Essentially, I didn't want to hire the exact same attorneys for all of our positions. It was intentional to switch it up a bit and try and only limit that, so we had a plethora of options in any type of situation, and I also tried to get a variety of value when it came to the attorneys across the board.
But so Chazen got picked up somewhere else? It gets confusing, there's so many of them. Chazen was very impressive standout also.
I don't see that one. There was a reason.
Okay. Well, we're in agreement on 3 of them. It seems like a lot. I don't even know how we're using all these for entities, but.
Yeah, well, you know, we will.
It's
Want to
just.
have flexibility.
Right.
Okay,
Can we get a vote?
Mrs. Ewell,
yes.
Mrs. Van Ducker, Mr. Lowe's,
yes,
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes. Okay, next resolution is 94, and this is approving pre-qualifying tax appeal attorneys. Is there a motion to adopt?
I don't adopt, but this is resolution 96.
We didn't do 94.
That was a risk manager, and then
Okay.
So,
we just did 95. So
Okay.
94 to 90.
Okay, then it's mislabeled.
Yeah, yeah, so, you picked up, after you picked up yours this afternoon, corrected
Just
versions were
switch
switched.
Thank you, yes, I picked it up then. No, it's okay. Let me see here. Okay, so then we are doing
It's 96 for the. tax attorney.
96 pre-qualifying labor tax. Okay, so they're the changes, right?
It was only the number because
Got
when the bond resolution turned from 1 resolution to 3, yeah, so and you
Got it.
snuck in like an engine and.
No problem, thank you. Okay, this was also an intention to get a wide range of qualified
Right, you need
taxes.
you need a second on that. 96.
Oh, second.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, discussion.
So this question is probably for Mr. King. So we're picking 4 tax attorneys. How would that work, the allocation? Because you're gonna allocate the work?
I work with, the administrator. So there's different, some firms do, more, commercial, some do residential.
Okay.
And depending if there's, one of them has a conflict.
So did you make these recommendations based on their expertise?
Well, I know a Di Francesco firm, I've worked with them, in the past. Dorsey Semro, Fred Semro is in multiple towns and does a lot of tax work. Murphy, here they do tax work, and Spiati Associates, they actually do they do a lot of private appeals. Residential, I'm sorry, residential private appeals. So that would be a good.
And that one was, the least expensive, so that's why I thought it'd be valuable to have a wide range of, pricing. So, to be able to support it.
Fred Semro came on strong recommendation to me by several towns.
Yeah, he's got a good bio. Okay, this was just unusual because some of the other ones we appoint somebody for the year, these were, we just appointed a pool. So that's why I was wondering how the work's gonna get allocated.
Well, it's individual, each tax appeal, I would think out of all the work that we do for tax appeals, it's a very individualized, it's one per case. So you can literally sit there and go, eeny, meeny, miny, moe type of thing, I mean, we would, because we would try and find the one that would fit the best attorney. But you could literally do that because it's individual cases per individual type of.
And looking ahead, I think we did the same thing with the next one, for same reason. Just,
Yes.
you know, we could get sued or need to sue
Exactly.
anybody for any variety of reasons, so you want to have a guy.
And for tax attorney, there's no benefit of having kind of a built-up relationship with, or them having knowledge of the town. Where you get inefficiencies, putting it across
I
board.
think DeFrancesco,
They have knowledge.
they have knowledge, they handled an appeal. And they're gonna handle, I think, another appeal that'll be coming up. But depending on how many appeals we do get, I mean, this year, we probably won't have any appeals because the price of houses have gone up so much. I mean, it's in keeping, but you never know, something could happen and you could have a lot of appeals filed.
We won't know until April 1st how many appeals we've had.
Yeah.
Okay, can we go to a vote?
Mrs. Yule,
Yes.
Mrs. Finoco,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Please.
Yes. All right, next one is resolution 97, thank you. Pre-qualifying conflicts litigation attorneys, is there a motion to adopt? And a second?
Second.
And discussion, but yes, Mr. Hamilton had just mentioned, yeah, we are pre-qualifying essentially for attorneys, so that, you know, litigation, as you know, as I know, it can be very, very specialized, so certain firms have different, are better for certain situations.
Yeah, so this one, I guess, I felt like there were some people that maybe didn't have the same level of qualifications. I didn't think it was necessary. I don't know, we have a lot of conflict litigation going on to have 4 appointed in the pool. Dakota's definitely had extensive experience. I think that was the one. Strongest submission, I had Chazen and Dakota's. But we didn't pick Chazen here. Where did we pick Chazen? We didn't.
I'm sorry.
I was saying Chazen had the strong, when I looked at the RFQs, they had the strong submission and Dakota's.
And we have pretty much, taken them out because of the fact that they are represented in the borough.
No, that was another firm.
Oh.
Very
So we're,
So where there were others that were far inferior to Chazen, I was wondering.
well,
And this is far superior to the others.
well, I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Morris
either.
County, Chazen's a big law firm. I worked with them on a Passaic River case currently, very big firm. Big firms cost a lot of money on a very, very big litigation. Possibly hire a firm like that, but most of the cases that we're gonna have are in Morris County, so you try to keep with firms, I think, that are in Morris County, a lot to know the judges that are familiar with Morris County. I know Dakota's firm has an office in Morris County. Louisville and Chivas has one.
Yeah, but Dasty and Associates is all South Jersey, it's Ocean and Monmouth County, and we picked that over Chazen. 46 attorneys, US News best lawyers.
My thought process, I personally think it's having one very large firm, I thought was plenty. I don't necessarily think very large firms necessarily are great. And I know Dakota's is a pretty large firm.
Mr. Conley, have you ever had a conflict of litigation attorney before? This is the first
Not
time.
while you're here.
What was the answer? I'm sorry.
Not this year's here.
Okay.
Um, It'll be 16 years.
Well, usually we have usually it's the township attorney that has historically has done it. We've decided to take that role away and make it more so it's the role spread out.
The township
And I
attorney
think
can't.
it benefits, yeah, and I
You
think it
should always have a
benefits.
conflict attorney, because if there's an issue between members, I can't represent one side over the other. So most towns do have a conflict attorney just for that.
A conflict attorney, this is for.
Well, right, but for different reasons. Yeah, we've already established that.
Depends on the case.
So it depends on the cases. Every case is
Not to
different.
mention, these are pre-qualified attorneys.
That's all we're
meaning,
doing is just pre-qualifying.
God forbid, some catastrophic, colossal litigation erupted, we're not compelled to go with one of these.
No, but they're pre-qualified, it's 6 months, and if something happens, if you have only one, you can have a conflict attorney. That's what-
That's the other thing with the large firms, so that happens often.
Yeah, I mean, again,
That's the reason
Dasty and
why.
Associates is South Jersey and they're $185 an hour. Chazen is $165 an hour and just says impeccable. And I don't know any of these firms. I'm looking at the RFP and I'm trying to make sure that residents understand if we're making every effort to have the best bench of people at the cheapest cost, because that's the whole point of this process.
And I agree with Chase, it's very, it's a big law firm, it's a good law firm.
We go to a vote.
Mrs. Ewald,
No.
Mrs. Fondacco,
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and can I get a motion to adopt resolution 99 authorizing temporary lease agreement for bus parking?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Okay. No, sorry. So the discussion we're here is really just to provide information to residents, because again, it's a very vague and cryptic. Kind of going the complete polar opposite of transparent.
Well, we're in negotiations of contract, it's
I'm saying in
contract.
terms of where, location, we don't have a price, I understand that.
Yeah, it's still in contract negotiation, that's why it was kept as big as possible.
Okay, so can we inform the residents now, what we're looking at?
I wouldn't give
Is there
it,
any need to do-
is there any need to?
Is that still part of the,
It's still negotiations.
I mean, or Mr. King, but, I mean, this, by definition, this resolution is not transparent, I would agree with you on that, it's generally when you're negotiating with another party, a contract, you don't want to be transparent about all your cards.
All this is asking is to negotiate a contract. Once I get the price, then I'm going to have to get a resolution for everyone here to accept that. That would probably be a better time to, put all the where, when, what, how much, what for, so it can be discussed. But it hasn't been negotiated yet.
Yeah.
It's a bus contract.
My only concern is the location, and I want to make sure residents are aware of that, which I know we talked about this in the executive session, so that'll come back before anything is decided in the contract.
Yes.
Okay.
But I just don't know what that price will be and what the terms and the length of it is. So once the administrator and I talk to the company, we'll have a better idea. We'll put into a resolution authorizing to enter into a contract. That contract will be drawn up once we get authority by the body.
Okay, Rule of thumb, if we want Stacy not to pull things out of the consent agenda, maybe a lot more information in the resolutions would be really helpful. And I'm doing this for the residents. I don't do it for me, believe me.
Okay, can we get a vote?
Wait, I just want to clear up something here.
When
was this bus company circulated? Yeah, this bus company has a immediate need. This is to provide busing for the students in this township. Should this company has almost an emergency need, will they be able to potentially occupy a parking lot before our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks?
Yes, they could. So that I spoke to I spoke to one of the entities that were there, going to be on that property as well, and they said that parking those buses in the back area would not affect what they have to do.
So just to be clear, I just wanted to be clear because, I mean, obviously, it's not gonna work. I mean, you negotiate with the school bus, providing the lease is not going to work for them if it's not fairly immediate.
For next meeting, we should be able to have a contract and insurance, insurance issues, hold harmless.
No matter what, we're gonna have to get insurance there.
Are we ready for a vote?
Vote.
Yes.
Mrs. Madako?
Yes.
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton?
Yes.
And Mayor Fritz?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.